2 days after my work contract was terminated, my wife, the CEO, wrote, "You should have learnt your lessons. Resume now." I replied, "Not happening. I'm the new CEO of your competitor's company." The next day, I found out. I want you to understand something about silence, real silence, not the kind that falls over a dinner table when someone says the wrong thing, not the absence of noise. I'm talking about the silence that wraps around your throat when the person you built your life with looks at you like you're disposable. That's the silence I was sitting in when her text came through. It was a Tuesday, 2 days after she fired me, 2 days after I walked out of the office, our office, with my belongings in a cardboard box like some cliché from a movie I never wanted to star in. The rain hadn't stopped since that afternoon, as if the sky itself was performing my grief, and I was in the apartment we shared, though shared felt like the wrong word now. She hadn't come home. She rarely did anymore. My phone lit up on the coffee table. 2:47 a.m. You should have learnt your lessons. Resume now. 8 words. No punctuation except that period, sitting there like a judge's gavel. Visual. Close-up of the text message. The words, "learnt your lessons," highlighted. If you've ever had someone reduce years of your life to a lesson they think they taught you, you know the feeling. It's not anger. Not at first. It's this cold, clarifying thing that spreads through your chest like ice water. Like suddenly you can see the shape of something that's been there all along, but you were too close to notice. I read it 3 times. She thought this was discipline. She thought she was training me. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I got here. Sitting in the dark at 3 in the morning, staring at 8 words that would change everything. Visual. Flashback transition. The scene softens, becomes warmer. Wedding photos on a wall. Her name is Victoria. Victoria Chen. When we met, I was a mid-level operations manager at a tech consulting firm, and she was the sharp-eyed director of business development at a rival company. We met at a conference in Austin, one of those massive hotel ballrooms where everyone's pretending the coffee is good and the keynotes are inspiring. She approached me during a networking session. I remember she was wearing this charcoal suit that probably cost more than my rent, and she looked at me like I was a problem she was interested in solving. "You work for Meridian Solutions," she said. Not a question. Guilty. "They're wasting you." I laughed. "You don't even know what I do." "I know they have you running operational efficiency reports for middle management. I read your white paper on supply chain automation last year. You're smarter than your position." That was Victoria. She saw things. She saw me when I still wasn't sure what I was looking at in the mirror. We married 18 months later. Small ceremony. Her idea. She wasn't sentimental about weddings, but she was sentimental about partnership. Or so I thought. She talked about us like we were a merger, 2 complementary assets, creating something greater than the sum of our parts. "We're going to build something," she told me on our honeymoon in Santorini. Her hand in mine, as we watched the sunset paint the white buildings gold. Something that matters. And we did. Or rather, she did. Visual. Montage office buildings. Late nights. Victoria giving presentations. Signing documents. 3 years into our marriage, Victoria launched Chen Dynamics, a strategic consulting firm focused on corporate restructuring and digital transformation. She had the vision, the connections, the ruthless clarity about what companies needed to survive in the new economy. But she needed someone to build the infrastructure, someone to turn her ideas into systems. "Come work with me," she said one night over dinner. "Be my COO. We'll do this together." I should have seen it then. The way she said, "with me," but meant for me. But I was in love. I believed in her. I believed in us. So I left Meridian. I took a pay cut. I poured everything into Chen Dynamics, 70-hour weeks, missed dinners with friends, holidays spent building operational frameworks while Victoria networked at conferences. I didn't mind. This was our dream, right? The company grew fast. Within 2 years, we had 40 employees and contracts with Fortune 500 companies. Victoria was brilliant in client meetings, commanding, persuasive, the kind of presence that made executives twice her age defer to her judgment. And I was in the background, making sure everything ran smoothly, making sure her vision had legs. "You're my secret weapon," she'd say, usually late at night when we were both exhausted, when the mask slipped a little and she seemed almost vulnerable. "I couldn't do this without you." I held on to those words. I built altars to them in my mind. Visual. The warmth fades. The scene becomes cooler, more clinical. An office at night. The change was gradual. So gradual I didn't notice until I was already drowning. It started with small things. She stopped asking for my input in strategy meetings. She'd present plans I'd never seen, initiatives I'd had no hand in shaping. When I asked about it, she'd smile, that professional smile she used with difficult clients, and say, "I need you focused on operations. That's where you're most valuable." Then she hired Marcus Chen. No relation, though Victoria joked about the coincidence. He was a vice president of strategy, pulled from one of the big consulting firms. Young, ambitious, with an MBA from Wharton, and the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. "We're scaling," Victoria explained. "I need strategic support at the executive level." "That's what I'm here for," I said. "Your operations. This is different." The way she said it. Like operations was somehow lesser. Like the entire infrastructure I'd built, the thing that allowed her to scale in the first place, was just maintenance. Marcus started appearing in photos on the company's social media. Marcus at client dinners. Marcus at board presentations. Marcus quoted in press releases. I was still working 70-hour weeks. I was still solving the problems no one else wanted to touch. But I was becoming invisible. Visual, a man's reflection in a computer screen. Barely visible, as others meet in the background. 6 months ago, she stopped coming home most nights. "Client crisis," she'd text, staying at the hotel near the office. I'd find hotel receipts. Always the same hotel. The Whitmore. Downtown. Premium suite. I'm not stupid. But I was in love. And love makes you perform Olympic-level mental gymnastics. Maybe she really was working. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I should focus on being supportive instead of suspicious. Then came the board meeting. We were pursuing a major contract with Vanguard Industries, a restructuring project worth $12 million over 3 years. I'd spent 4 months building the operational proposal, the implementation timeline, the risk assessment. It was meticulous. It was bulletproof. Victoria presented it to the board. She didn't mention my name once. When the board approved it, she thanked Marcus for his strategic vision. I confronted her that night. Not angry, just hurt, confused. "Victoria, that proposal was my work. 4 months of..." "The proposal was a team effort," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "You did the operational components. Marcus shaped the strategy. I synthesized it for the client. I shaped the strategy. I identified the store. This isn't productive." She closed her laptop, finally looked at me. "You're feeling underappreciated. I get it. But this isn't about credit. It's about what's best for the company. I'm your husband and my COO, which is why you should understand that personal feelings don't belong in business decisions." Personal feelings, as if the years I'd poured into her dream were just feelings. Visual, a close-up of a wedding ring being twisted on a finger. 3 weeks ago, everything came apart. I found out by accident. One of our junior analysts, Sarah, pulled me aside after a meeting. She looked uncomfortable, like she was debating whether to speak. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," she started. "Then don't," I said. I was tired. I didn't want more bad news. It's about the Vanguard contract. The board's asking questions about cost overruns. I frowned. What cost overruns? We're under budget. Not according to the reports Marcus submitted. She showed me. Expense reports I'd never seen. Consulting fees, travel costs, vendor contracts, all inflated. All attributed to operational management decisions. My decisions. Except I'd never approved any of it. I confronted Victoria in her office. Closed door. I had the documents in my hand. What is this? She barely glanced at them. Expense reports. These numbers are wrong. I never approved these vendors. These costs are... Marcus handled vendor relationships for Vanguard. If there's a discrepancy, take it up with him. Victoria, I put the papers on her desk. Someone's cooking the books, and they're putting my name on it. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't concern or alarm or partnership. It was calculation. The board's conducting an audit, she said calmly. They have questions about operational oversight. Given your role, they're concerned about whether you're the right fit for COO, given the financial irregularities. The floor tilted. You're setting me up. I'm trying to protect the company. If you can't handle the pressure of executive leadership, I built this company with you. You built infrastructure. I built the company. Visual. A door closing. The sound echoes. 2 days later, she fired me. It was Friday afternoon. She did it in the conference room, not her office. Marcus was there. So was our head of HR. We're restructuring the executive team, Victoria said. Her voice was steady, professional, like she was presenting to a client. Your position as COO is being eliminated. We're consolidating strategic and operational functions under a new Chief Strategy Officer role. I looked at Marcus. He didn't meet my eyes. Who gets that role? I asked, though I already knew. That hasn't been finalized. You're firing me. We're offering you a separation package. 3-month severance, continuation of benefits, and a strong letter of recommendation. Victoria, this is a business decision, she said. And then, almost gently, you knew this was possible. Nothing lasts forever. Even marriages, apparently. Visual. Back to the present. The rain. The dark apartment. The phone glowing. So that's where I was when her text came through. 2 days after she fired me. After I'd spent 48 hours cycling through rage and grief and disbelief. After I'd started to wonder if maybe I really was the problem. If maybe I really wasn't good enough. You should have learnt your lessons. Resume now. I stared at those words. Resume. Like it was an order. Like I was an employee she could summon back when it was convenient. And something inside me just stopped bending. I thought about all the late nights, all the times I'd defended her decisions, smoothed over her rough edges with staff, fixed her mistakes without taking credit. I thought about how I'd made myself smaller so she could be bigger. I thought about the hotel receipts, the way Marcus looked at her, the way she said my name now, when she said it at all, like it was an afterthought. And I picked up my phone, but I didn't type what she expected. Visual. Hands typing on a phone, each word appearing on screen with deliberate slowness. Not happening. I'm the new CEO of your competitor's company. I sent it, and for the first time in months, I smiled. Visual. The message shows delivered. Then read. 3 dots appear. Then disappear. The screen goes dark. Because here's what Victoria didn't know. What she couldn't have known because she'd stopped paying attention to anything that wasn't her own reflection. That white paper she mentioned when we met, the one on supply chain automation, I'd updated it, expanded it, built it into a full framework for corporate digital transformation. And I'd been having conversations, quiet conversations, with people who remembered my name when Victoria had started erasing it. One of those people was Robert Sullivan, CEO of Titan Strategic Group, Chen Dynamics' biggest competitor. He'd reached out 3 months ago, back when I first started noticing the cracks. "If you ever want to talk," he'd said, "we value operational excellence." I'd ignored him then. Loyalty, love, all those things that mattered when I thought they were mutual. But 2 days ago, sitting in that conference room watching my wife fire me like I was a stranger, I'd made a call. And 12 hours ago, I'd signed a contract. CEO, not COO, not a supporting role. The top, Titan Strategic Group, wanted to rebuild from the ground up. They wanted someone who understood the business from the inside out, someone who'd built something once and could do it again, someone who had a very personal understanding of Chen Dynamics' weaknesses. I sat there in the dark, phone in my hand, waiting for her response. It didn't come. Not that night. But the next day, I found out just how much I'd underestimated what I was walking into. I answered on the third ring. "Congratulations are in order," Robert said. His voice had that particular quality of men who've spent decades in boardrooms warm enough to seem friendly, controlled enough to remind you he's assessing every word you say. "Though I suspect you didn't sleep much last night." "Not much," I admitted. The apartment was still dark, curtains drawn, but gray morning light was starting to leak through the edges. I hadn't moved from the couch. The coffee table was littered with empty water bottles and my laptop, still open to the contract I'd signed. Chief Executive Officer. The words still didn't feel real. "I got a very interesting call about an hour ago," Robert continued, "from a mutual acquaintance. Apparently, someone sent a rather pointed message to Victoria Chen last night." My chest tightened. Word travels fast. "In this industry?" "Always." I could hear the smile in his voice. "Marcus Chen called me directly, wanted to know if the rumors were true, if we'd actually hired you as CEO." Marcus. Of course. He'd probably been there when Victoria got my text, probably watched her face when she read it. The thought shouldn't have satisfied me as much as it did. Visual, flashback, Marcus and Victoria in an office, her staring at her phone, the color draining from her face. "What did you tell him?" I asked. "The truth, that as of 9 a.m. this morning, you're officially Titan Strategic Group's Chief Executive Officer. That we're thrilled to have someone of your caliber leading our next phase of growth." He paused. He didn't take it well. I imagine not. He asked if we understood the optics of hiring Chen Dynamics' former COO, suggested it might look like corporate espionage. I reminded him that you were terminated, not poached, and that non-compete clauses don't apply when someone's employment is ended without cause. I'd read that section of my separation agreement 3 times. Victoria's lawyer had been sloppy or arrogant. They'd included standard non-solicitation language. I couldn't recruit Chen Dynamics employees for a year, but the non-compete was poorly worded and probably unenforceable. And it certainly didn't prevent me from taking a leadership role at a competitor. "How did he respond to that?" I asked. "He threatened legal action, vaguely. The kind of threat people make when they're panicking but haven't actually consulted counsel. And Victoria hasn't called yet." Robert's tone shifted, became more serious. "But she will. And when she does, things are going to get complicated. Which is why I'm calling. We need to meet. This morning. There's something you need to know before you walk into this office." The way he said it, like he was warning me about something. "What is it?" "Not on the phone. Can you be at my office in an hour?" Visual. A man getting up from a couch, moving through the apartment. The camera follows his reflection in mirrors and windows. Tired eyes, unshaven, but something harder in his expression now. Titan Strategic Group's headquarters occupied the top 12 floors of the Millennium Tower downtown. Glass and steel, all clean lines, and aggressive modernity. The opposite of Chen Dynamics' office, which Victoria had designed to feel like an elegant law firm, dark wood, leather, subtle lighting that made everyone look thoughtful and important. I'd been here before, for industry conferences and the occasional networking event, but walking through those doors as CEO felt different. The security guard who'd always nodded politely at me now stood a little straighter. The receptionist who'd checked me in for meetings now smiled wider. "Mr. Sullivan is expecting you," she said. "Top floor. He asked you to come straight up." The elevator was all mirrors. I caught my reflection from 3 angles: wrinkled shirt, 2 days without shaving, eyes that looked hollowed out from lack of sleep. I looked like exactly what I was, a man who'd just blown up his life. But I also looked like someone who decided to stop apologizing for taking up space. Visual. The elevator numbers climbing. Each floor a soft ding. The reflection becoming clearer, more resolved. Robert was waiting in his office when I arrived. Corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows, with a view that stretched from the financial district to the bay. He was in his early 60s, silver hair and expensive suit, the kind of man who looked like success personified. But what struck me was the expression on his face. Not congratulatory, not welcoming, concerned. "Close the door," he said. I did. He gestured to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. I sat. He didn't. He walked to the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. "I'm going to be direct with you," he said, "because you're walking into a situation that's more complicated than you realize, and I need you to understand what you're dealing with." Okay, when I offered you this position, I did it because I believe you're brilliant at what you do. I've watched you build Chen Dynamics' operational framework from the ground up. I know what you're capable of. He turned to face me. But I also did it because I knew it would hurt Victoria Chen, and I need you to understand why that matters. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I don't understand. "Victoria and I have history," Robert said. 5 years ago, before she started Chen Dynamics, she worked here, at Titan. The floor tilted slightly. "What?" "She was our director of strategic initiatives. Brilliant, ambitious, everything you'd want in a rising executive." His jaw tightened. "She was also stealing from us." Visual. The room seems to darken. Papers spread across a desk. Financial documents. Highlighted sections. Damning evidence. I couldn't speak. Couldn't process what he was saying. "She'd been building Chen Dynamics while she was still employed here," Robert continued. "Using our client lists, our research, our proprietary methodologies. When I confronted her, she resigned before I could fire her. Took 3 of our best consultants with her, and 6 of our clients. Why didn't you sue her?" "We tried. She'd been careful. Just careful enough that our lawyers said it would be a long, expensive fight with uncertain outcomes. And Victoria knew it. She knew exactly how far she could push without crossing into actionable theft." He sat down behind his desk now, looking at me with something like pity. "So I let her go. Built her little empire. Told myself it didn't matter. But it did. It did." He leaned forward. "And when I heard she'd fired her COO, her husband, I saw an opportunity. A way to hit back at someone who's been eating my lunch for 5 years. I won't lie to you about that. I hired you because you're talented. But I also hired you because you're the one weapon that can hurt her most." I should have been angry. Should have felt used, manipulated, like a pawn in someone else's game. But all I felt was a strange, cold clarity. "You're telling me this now because?" "Because you need to know what you're getting into. Victoria Chen doesn't lose gracefully. And when she realizes what we're doing, when she sees that you're not just working for a competitor, but for me, she's going to come at you with everything she has. Visual. A chessboard. Pieces moving. A queen being cornered. What exactly are we doing? I asked. Robert smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. We're taking back what she stole, and we're using everything you know about how she operates to do it. He pulled out a file folder, thick, official-looking. He slid it across the desk to me. This is every contract Chen Dynamics currently holds, every client relationship, every ongoing project, every vulnerability in their business model. He tapped the folder. You built most of these systems. You know where the weak points are, where they're overextended, where they're making promises they can't keep. I opened the folder. The first page was a client list. I recognized every name, knew every project timeline, every pain point, every place where Victoria had oversold and I'd scrambled to deliver. You want me to poach her clients. I want you to compete, legitimately. Better service, better results, better operational execution, all the things you're exceptional at and she takes for granted. Robert's voice was steel now. Chen Dynamics has grown fast. Too fast. They're bleeding talent. You've seen the turnover rates. They're overpromising to clients. And without you holding the infrastructure together, they're going to start missing deadlines. Marcus can't do what I did, I said slowly, understanding dawning. Marcus is a strategy consultant. He can make PowerPoints sing. But can he manage a team of 40 people? Can he build operational frameworks that actually work? Can he firefight when a project goes sideways at 2 a.m.? Robert shook his head. You were her secret weapon, and she threw you away. I thought about all those nights. All those times I'd fixed problems Victoria never knew existed because I'd solved them before they reached her desk. The infrastructure I'd built wasn't just systems and processes. It was relationships with staff, understanding of each client's unique needs, the institutional knowledge of how things actually got done. And she'd fired me, like I was replaceable. Visual. A building's foundation cracking. Slow, almost imperceptible, but spreading. There's something else, Robert said. Something I found out yesterday, after we signed your contract. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but you deserve to know. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned it to face me. It was a photograph, taken at some charity gala, by the look of it. Victoria in an evening gown, Marcus in a tuxedo. They were dancing, his hand on her waist. Her head tilted toward him, smiling. Not a professional smile, a real one. This was taken 6 months ago, Robert said quietly. At the Riverside Foundation Gala. One of our board members was there. She sent me this yesterday when she heard you joined us. 6 months ago. Right when Marcus was hired. Right when Victoria stopped coming home. They've been careful, Robert continued. No public relationship. Nothing that would look unprofessional. But multiple people have seen them together. Hotels, late dinners. They're not just colleagues. I stared at the photo. At the way they looked at each other. All those nights she said she was working. All those client crises that kept her at the hotel. The Whitmore, premium suite. Visual, hotel receipts scattered across a table. The same hotel, over and over. The same suite number. I'm sorry, Robert said, and he sounded like he meant it. I know this isn't easy to hear, but you need to understand what you're dealing with. This isn't just about business. This is personal for her. You were in the way of her company, of her relationship with Marcus, of whatever vision she has for her future. So, she eliminated you. She could have divorced me, I said. My voice sounded distant, like someone else was speaking. Could have been honest. Divorce is expensive, complicated. You'd have a claim to half of Chen Dynamics you helped build it, even if your name isn't on the founding documents. Robert took his phone back. This way, she removes you from the company first, establishes a narrative that you weren't essential, and then, when the divorce comes, and it will come, she can argue you didn't contribute to the business's success. That's why she fired me. That's why she fired you. I sat back in the chair, processed it all. The affair, the calculation, the long game she'd been playing while I was still believing in us. And then I thought about her text last night. You should have learnt your lessons. Resume now. She'd thought she was in control, thought she could discard me and pick me back up when it was convenient, when Marcus proved inadequate, or when she needed someone to blame for the problems that were already starting to show. She'd thought I would come back, grateful, obedient. What do you need from me? I asked. Robert's expression shifted, became sharper. I need you to be exactly what I hired you to be, a brilliant CEO who understands this business from the ground up. I need you to build something here that's better than anything Victoria Chen has ever created. He paused. I'm self, and I need you to not feel guilty about it. I don't, I said, and I realized it was true. Visual. The city spread out below. 2 buildings visible in the skyline. Titan Tower, and, in the distance, Chen Dynamics headquarters. A visual contrast. A battle line. Good, Robert said. Because in about, he checked his watch, 15 minutes, we're holding a press conference, announcing your appointment, announcing our new strategic direction. And when Victoria sees it, when she understands that you're not just moving on, but moving up, she's going to declare war. Let her. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. There's one more thing. Something I need you to see before we go public. He turned his laptop to face me. Opened an email. The sender was Sarah Chen, no relation to Victoria or Marcus. Sarah, the junior analyst who'd first showed me the cooked expense reports. The one who'd tried to warn me. The email was timestamped from last night, 2:14 a.m. The subject line read, "You need to know the truth." I started reading, and with each line, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Because what Sarah had sent wasn't just about the Vanguard contract. It wasn't just about inflated expenses and falsified reports. It was about everything. Visual, email, text filling the screen, numbers, names, dates. A conspiracy laid out in bullet points and attachments. Victoria hadn't just been setting me up to take the fall for Marcus's financial irregularities. She'd been embezzling from Chen Dynamics for over a year. And Marcus wasn't her accomplice. He was her fall guy, just like I was supposed to be. Sarah's email was 12 pages long. I read it twice before the press conference, standing in Robert's office while he made calls to board members, preparing them for what was about to become very public. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From the sheer crystalline rage that comes when you finally see the complete picture of how thoroughly you've been used. Chen Dynamics maintains 3 operational accounts, Sarah had written. Primary operating, client escrow, and project reserves. Standard structure. But 6 months after you built the accounting framework, a 4th account was created, labeled Strategic Development Fund. You weren't copied on the authorization. I remembered the framework I'd designed. Triple redundancy, transparent tracking, audit trails for every transaction over $5,000. It was airtight, or it should have been. The Strategic Development Fund is real, Sarah continued. It's registered with the bank, board approved, everything legitimate on paper. Victoria presented it as a vehicle for investing in growth opportunities, new hires, technology infrastructure, business development. The board authorized a quarterly allocation of 8% of net revenue. 8%. On Chen Dynamics' current revenue, that was roughly $200,000 per quarter. Not huge, but not insignificant. Here's the problem, Sarah wrote. The money going into the fund matches the authorization, but the money coming out doesn't match any growth investments I can track. I started noticing it 4 months ago when I was reconciling vendor payments. We supposedly spent $85,000 on a CRM system upgrade, but I manage vendor relationships. No such upgrade happened. Visual, a spreadsheet, red numbers, Transactions that lead nowhere. She'd attached documentation, invoice after invoice for services that were never rendered, products that were never delivered, consultants who didn't exist, all paid from the Strategic Development Fund. All approved by Victoria Chen and countersigned by Marcus Chen. Over 18 months, approximately $1.2 million had disappeared. I couldn't figure out where the money was going, Sarah wrote, until I cross-referenced the payment dates with Victoria's travel schedule. Every major withdrawal corresponds with a trip she took, sometimes with Marcus, sometimes alone. She'd included travel records, Miami, Singapore, London, Paris, the Maldives, 5-star hotels, first-class flights, restaurants where a single dinner cost more than most people's monthly rent. Some of this might be legitimate business travel, Sarah acknowledged, but not all of it. Not the personal shopping charges I found on the corporate card. Not the wire transfer to a real estate company in Belize. Not the monthly payments to a property management company in Manhattan for an apartment that's not listed in any business records. Manhattan apartment. Monthly payments of $8,000. I think she's building an exit, Sarah concluded. I think she's been siphoning money for over a year, creating assets that aren't tied to Chen Dynamics, preparing for something. And I think when the audit completes, she's going to make it look like Marcus authorized everything. His signature is on every fraudulent invoice. Yours is on the original accounting framework. You're both exposed. Except I wasn't anymore. I was gone, fired, conveniently removed before the audit could implicate me. And Marcus was still there, still countersigning everything Victoria put in front of him. Still the perfect fall guy for when everything collapsed. Visual, a signature on a document. Marcus Chen, over and over, a paper trail leading to a cliff. Why are you telling me this? I'd emailed back, even though I knew she'd taken a massive risk sending this information. Her response came within minutes. Because you tried to warn everyone about the Vanguard discrepancies and got fired for it. Because I've watched you hold this company together while she took credit. Because someone needs to know the truth before she destroys what's left. Someone needs to know. Now I knew. And in 10 minutes, I was going to stand in front of cameras and business reporters and announce my new position while Victoria was almost certainly watching. While she was probably still expecting me to crumble and come back. Ready? Robert appeared at my elbow. He'd been on the phone, but now he was looking at me with sharp assessment. You look like you've seen a ghost. Not a ghost, I said. Just the full picture. Sarah's information? I nodded. It's solid. She's meticulous. If she says the numbers don't add up, they don't add up. Robert was quiet for a moment. We can use this. She's committing fraud. She is. And when it comes out, and it will come out, Chen Dynamics is going to implode. The question is whether we wait for that implosion or whether we accelerate it. He checked his watch. But that's a decision for later. Right now, we have a press conference. And you need to look like the future, not the past. Visual. A bathroom. A man in the mirror, straightening a tie. New suit, perfectly tailored. The transformation from wounded to weapon. The press room was smaller than I expected. Maybe 30 people, business reporters from the major outlets, a few industry bloggers, some analysts who covered the strategic consulting sector. But there were cameras, 3 of them, and the event was being live-streamed. Victoria would be watching. I was certain of that. Robert went first. Standard corporate introduction, the kind of smooth, practiced presentation that CEOs give in their sleep. Titan Strategic Group's history, our market position, our commitment to innovation and operational excellence. Today marks a significant moment in that journey, he said, and I heard the subtle shift in his tone, the one that made reporters lean forward. We're announcing a major leadership transition and a new strategic direction. Effective immediately, Titan Strategic Group has appointed a new Chief Executive Officer, someone many of you know. Someone who's been instrumental in shaping the strategic consulting landscape over the past 5 years. He gestured to where I stood at the side of the stage. Please welcome our new CEO, David Morrison. Visual. Walking onto a stage. Lights bright. Cameras tracking. The weight of eyes. Of judgment. Of opportunity. The applause was polite, professional. I saw a few reporters exchanging glances. They recognized my name, were already making the connection to Chen Dynamics. I took the podium, looked out at the faces, and I spoke. Thank you, Robert. Thank you all for being here. I'd prepared remarks, bullet points about vision and growth and market opportunity. But standing there, feeling the weight of everything I'd learned in the past 72 hours, the prepared speech felt hollow. So I set it aside. I'm not going to pretend this is a routine transition, I said. Most of you know I spent the last 5 years as Chief Operating Officer at Chen Dynamics. What you might not know is that as of last Friday, that position was eliminated. I was let go. A ripple through the room. Reporters' fingers moving on keyboards and phones. This was the story now. I could stand here and tell you that was a mutual decision, a natural evolution, the kind of corporate language we use to smooth over difficult truths. I paused. But that would be dishonest. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that dishonesty has a cost. Eventually, someone pays it. Visual. Close-up on reporters' faces. Attention. Sharpening. This isn't the usual corporate theater. I built Chen Dynamics' operational infrastructure from the ground up, I continued. Every system, every process, every framework that allowed that company to scale. I did it because I believed in the mission. I believed in partnership. I believed that if you work hard enough, if you're good enough at what you do, people will value that. I could feel Robert's eyes on me. This wasn't what we'd discussed, but I couldn't stop. I was wrong. Not about the work. That work was excellent, and I'm proud of it. But I was wrong about what gets valued in business. It's not the person building the foundation. It's the person standing on top of it, taking credit. A hand went up. I nodded. Are you saying Victoria Chen took credit for your work? The reporter was from Business Insider. Young, sharp-eyed. I'm saying that in many organizations, the people doing the operational work are invisible until something goes wrong. Then suddenly everyone knows your name. For the wrong reasons. I met the reporter's gaze. I'm also saying that I'm done being invisible. What does that mean for Titan? Another reporter. Forbes. It means we're going to do something different here. We're going to build a consulting firm that values operational excellence as much as strategic vision. That understands you can't have sustainable strategy without flawless execution. That treats the people building the systems as essential, not expendable. I could hear the clicking of keyboards intensifying. This was better than they'd hoped for drama, conflict, a personal story. Chen Dynamics is a good company with talented people, I said carefully. But it's built on a model that's increasingly fragile. Fast growth, high-profile client wins, aggressive promises, and underneath all of that, an operational infrastructure that's been strained past its capacity. Are you saying Chen Dynamics is going to fail? WSJ reporter, direct question. I'm saying that any company that treats operational excellence as an afterthought is playing a dangerous game. Eventually, the foundation cracks. Visual. Split screen the press conference on one side, and on the other, an office where Victoria watches on a laptop, her face unreadable, but her hand gripping a pen so tightly her knuckles are white. The questions came faster after that. About my plans for Titan. About whether I'd try to recruit Chen Dynamics employees. About competition and market share and strategy. I answered them all. Professionally. Confidently, but also honestly. Yes, we'd be competing directly with Chen Dynamics for clients. No, I wouldn't be recruiting their current staff. The non-solicitation agreement was clear. Yes, I believed Titan could become the premier strategic consulting firm in the industry within 2 years. And yes, I understood. This made for an awkward situation given my history with Chen Dynamics CEO. That's one way to put it, I said, when someone asked about Victoria directly. Another way is to say that sometimes the best motivation is proving wrong the people who underestimated you. The press conference lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, Robert pulled me aside in the hallway outside. That was either brilliant or career suicide, he said. I'm not sure which. Jezendan. And quote, does it matter? I suppose not. You just declared war in front of 30 reporters and a live stream audience. He smiled, but it was tight. Victoria's going to lose her mind. Good. My phone had been buzzing in my pocket throughout the press conference. I pulled it out now. 17 missed calls. 23 text messages. Most were from former colleagues at Chen Dynamics. Supportive messages. Good for you. You deserved better. Knock 'em dead. But 3 were from Victoria. Visual. Phone screen. 3 messages. Each one longer than the last. The desperation. Visible even in text form. Messages. Close. Visual. Messages. Visual. The first one came in during the opening remarks. What the hell are you doing? The second, during my answer about operational infrastructure. Call me. Now. We need to talk about this. Win not win. 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 Win not. The third, after I'd implied Chen Dynamics had a fragile foundation. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. You think Robert Sullivan gives a damn about you? You're a revenge play. A trophy. And when he's done proving a point, you'll be right back where you started. Call me before you make this worse. I almost laughed. Even now, she thought this was about her, that I'd made this decision to hurt her, rather than to save myself. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called Sarah. She answered on the first ring. I watched the press conference. Her voice was shaky. That was intense. Thank you for the information, I said. The email, all of it. Are you going to use it? I looked at Robert, who was watching me with careful attention. Not yet, but yes, eventually. She's going to figure out I sent it to you. Probably. I could get fired. You could. I agreed. Or you could come work for me. Silence on the other end. Titan needs a director of finance and operations, I continued. Someone meticulous. Someone with institutional knowledge of how strategic consulting firms actually run. Someone who understands that the numbers tell a story, and you can't lie about math forever. The non-solicitation clause says I can't recruit you. Doesn't say you can't apply for an open position on your own initiative. Doesn't say I can't hire the best candidate for the job. More silence. Then, when do I start? Visual. A chessboard. Pieces moving. A pawn becoming a queen. The rest of the day was a blur. Meetings with Titan's executive team. Introductions to department heads. Strategy sessions about client outreach and competitive positioning. Robert had assembled a solid team, but they'd been directionless for months, waiting for leadership that knew what it wanted to build. I knew exactly what I wanted to build. By 6 p.m., I was exhausted, but also energized in a way I hadn't felt in years. This was mine, not ours, not something I was building for someone else's vision. Mine. I was gathering my things to leave when my phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. David Morrison. My voice professional, guarded, Mr. Morrison, this is James Chen. Pause. Victoria's father. The floor tilted. I'd met James Chen exactly 3 times. Once at our wedding, where he'd given a toast about building legacies. Once at a company anniversary party, where he'd barely spoken to me. And once at a charity gala where Victoria had introduced me as her operations manager. Not her husband, not her partner, her operations manager. Mr. Chen. I kept my voice neutral. I need to meet with you, he said. Tonight, before this gets any worse. I'm not sure what you mean. Don't play games with me. You just went on television and implied my daughter's company is built on sand. You allied yourself with Robert Sullivan, who has hated this family for 5 years. And now you're hiring away her employees. His voice was steel. So don't pretend you don't understand what's happening here. Victoria fired me. I know. She made a mistake. He said it simply, factually. She's making a lot of mistakes. And if you and I don't talk, those mistakes are going to destroy both of you. I'm not interested in being destroyed. Then meet with me. 1 hour. There are things you don't know. Things Victoria doesn't know. Things that, if they come out the wrong way, will end more than just her career. I should have said no. Should have hung up. But there was something in his voice. Not pleading, exactly, but genuine concern. Where? I asked. He gave me an address. A restaurant in the financial district. Private dining room. Come alone, he said. And David, whatever you think you know about Victoria, about Chen dynamics, about what's really happening here, you're only seeing part of the picture. The line went dead. Visual. Night falling over the city. Rain starting again. A man standing at a window, phone in hand, trying to decide if he's about to walk into a trap or toward the truth. I looked at the address he'd sent. The restaurant was expensive, exclusive, the kind of place where deals were made and secrets were traded. Robert had warned me Victoria would declare war, but maybe the war had started long before I knew there was a battlefield. And maybe James Chen was about to show me just how many players were actually in this game. I grabbed my coat. The restaurant was called Meridian, not the consulting firm I'd worked for years ago, just one of those cosmic coincidences that felt like a sign. The private dining room was all dark wood and leather, the kind of space designed for conversations that couldn't happen in public. Through the rain-streaked windows, the city looked like it was melting. James Chen was already there when I arrived. He stood when I entered old-school manners, the kind men of his generation learned when a handshake still meant something. He was in his late 60s, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first car. But what struck me was his eyes, sharp, assessing. The eyes of a man who'd built empires and buried rivals. Victoria had those same eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." I wasn't sure I would either. We sat. A waiter appeared immediately, clearly briefed to be invisible but attentive. James ordered a scotch. Neat. I asked for water. "Not drinking?" James raised an eyebrow. "I want to be clear-headed for this conversation." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Smart. You're going to need to be." Visual. 2 glasses on a table. 1 amber liquid, 1 clear. The contrast, deliberate. The waiter disappeared. We were alone now. The only sound, the rain, and the distant murmur of the main dining room beyond the closed door. James took a sip of his scotch, studied me over the rim of the glass. "You've had quite a week," he said finally. "That's one way to describe it. Fired by your wife, hired by her biggest competitor, declared war on her company in front of the business press." He set down his glass. "Most men would be in a bar somewhere, drowning their sorrows. But you're here, meeting with the father of the woman who destroyed your career. So either you're very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. No, he shook his head. You're neither. You're angry. And you're trying to figure out if this is a trap. Is it? That depends on what you do with what I'm about to tell you. The food arrived, then appetizers neither of us had ordered. But James clearly had a standing arrangement here. Oysters, some kind of carpaccio, truffle risotto, the kind of food that costs more than most people spend on groceries in a week. I didn't touch it. Neither did he. I'm going to start with something you already know, James said. Victoria has been embezzling from Chen Dynamics, roughly $1.2 million over 18 months, funneled through a development fund, hidden in fake invoices, laundered through various accounts. He paused. Your analyst friend Sarah did good work. Her numbers are accurate. My chest tightened. How do you know about Sarah's email? Because I'm on Chen Dynamics' board of directors. And when an audit is ordered, the board gets preliminary findings. He met my gaze. I've known about the discrepancies for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Before Victoria fired me. Before any of this exploded. Why didn't you stop her? I asked. Because stopping her means exposing her. And exposing her means destroying the company. Every client relationship, every contract, every bit of credibility Chen Dynamics has built gone. The lawsuits alone would bury us. He picked up his scotch again, swirled it. And because she's my daughter, visual. A father's hands, weathered but manicured. A wedding ring, the weight of complicated love. A wedding ring with complicated love. A wedding ring, a wedding ring. A father's hands, a wedding ring, a wedding ring, a wedding ring, a wedding ring, a wedding ring. You're protecting her. I'm trying to, James said quietly. That's why you're here. I need to understand what you want. Revenge? Justice? To watch her burn? Because right now, you're holding a match. And my daughter poured gasoline all over herself. We birding and incline. We birding and incline and incline. I thought about Victoria's text from last night. The dismissiveness, the assumption that I'd come crawling back. What I want, I said slowly, is what I've always wanted. To build something that matters. To be valued for the work I do. To not be treated like I'm disposable. Noble sentiments. But that doesn't answer my question. I don't want to destroy her. The truth surprised me as I said it. But I'm not going to save her either. Not anymore. James studied me for a long moment, then nodded, like I'd passed some kind of test. Let me tell you a story, he said, about my daughter, about how she became the person who could fire her own husband without blinking. Visual. Flashback grainy, like old photographs. A young Victoria, maybe 12 years old, in a private school uniform. Victoria's mother died when she was 11, James began. Cancer. Aggressive. She went from diagnosis to gone in 4 months. And Victoria, she didn't cry at the funeral. Didn't cry after. I took her to therapists, grief counselors. Nothing. She just became harder, more focused. Like she'd decided emotions were a weakness she couldn't afford. I'd known Victoria's mother was dead. She'd mentioned it once, early in our relationship, but she'd never talked about how it happened. I tried to be there for her, James continued. But I was building my own company at the time, Chen Industries, manufacturing and import, export, 70-hour weeks. I told myself she was resilient, that she didn't need me hovering, that she was fine. Dying. But she wasn't. She was 12. Of course she wasn't. He looked down at his glass. By the time she was 16, she was running circles around me. Straight A's, debate team captain, already planning her path to business school. I was proud. I thought I'd raised a fighter. You raised a survivor, I said. I raised someone who learned that the only person you can rely on is yourself. That love is a liability. That showing vulnerability means someone will hurt you. James looked up at me. Does that excuse what she did to you? No, but it explains it. Visual. A young woman standing alone at a grave. Rain falling. No umbrella, not moving. I thought about all the times I'd tried to get Victoria to open up, to share what she was feeling, to let me in past the strategic thinking and the business analysis. She never had, not really. When she started Chen Dynamics, James said, I was her first investor. $2 million, seed capital. I believed in her vision, but I also saw the warning signs. The way she burned through partners. The way she saw every relationship as transactional. I tried to talk to her about it. What did she say? She said that sentiment was for people who could afford to fail, that she wasn't one of them. The food sat between us, untouched and cooling. Outside, the rain was getting heavier. You want to know why she fired you? James leaned forward. It wasn't about performance. It wasn't even about Marcus, though that's part of it. She fired you because you reminded her that she's capable of loving someone, and that terrified her. I felt something twist in my chest. That's not love. No, he agreed. It's not, but it's the closest she knows how to get. Visual, 2 wedding rings, one still being worn, one in a drawer somewhere. You still haven't told me why I'm here, I said. Why you're telling me all this. James sat back in his chair. The easy storytelling was over. Now we were getting to business. The audit will be complete in 2 weeks, he said. When it is, the board will have to act. And when we act, Victoria will be removed as CEO, probably face criminal charges. Chen Dynamics will collapse. Unless someone steps in to steady the ship. Someone who knows the business inside and out. Someone the clients trust. Someone who can manage the operational side while we restructure the executive team. Understanding hit me like cold water. You want me to come back? I want you to save my daughter's company, and in doing so, give her a chance to fix this without destroying herself. I almost laughed. You're asking me to rescue the woman who fired me? The woman who's been stealing from her own company? The woman who's sleeping with my replacement? I'm asking you to do the right thing, James said quietly. Not for her, for the 40 people who work at Chen Dynamics, who did nothing wrong. For the clients who trusted us with their business. For the industry that doesn't need another consulting firm scandal. Robert Sullivan. Robert wants revenge. I understand that. Victoria hurt him, and now he's using you to hurt her back. But what happens to you when that revenge is complete? You think Titan is going to be your home? You're a weapon to him. And weapons get put away when the war is over. Visual. A chess piece being moved. A pawn advanced, but the board shows it's heading toward a trap. You don't know that. I know, Robert. We've done business for 30 years. He's brilliant, strategic, ruthless when he needs to be. But he doesn't build loyalty. He builds utility. And when you're no longer useful, James made a gesture like sweeping pieces off a board. I wanted to argue, but part of me wondered if he was right. Robert had been clear about why he hired me to hurt Victoria. What happened after that? Here's what I'm proposing, James said. Come back to Chen Dynamics, not as COO, as CEO. Victoria steps down, takes a leave of absence to focus on strategic initiatives. You run the company. You fix the operational problems. You restore client confidence. And in the process, you prove that you're the leader everyone should have recognized all along. And Victoria goes into therapy, deals with her issues, pays back what she stole, quietly, maybe, eventually, finds a way to be the person she could have been if her mother hadn't died. It was a beautiful pitch, redemptive, healing, the kind of ending where everyone gets saved. It was also complete bullshit. You're forgetting something, I said. Victoria doesn't want to be saved, and I'm done trying to save people who see that as weakness. You love her. I did love her, past tense, and that love nearly destroyed me. I stood up. Thank you for dinner, and for the story about her mother. It helps me understand her. But it doesn't change what she did. David, I'm not your weapon against Robert, and I'm not your solution to Victoria's problems. I moved toward the door. She made her choices. I'm making mine. Wait. James's voice was sharp now. Command, not request. There's something else. Something I haven't told you. James's Haftus's problems. I stopped, turned back. He was standing now, too, and for the first time tonight, he looked old, tired. The money Victoria took, he said. It's not just embezzlement. She was supposed to use that fund to pay off a debt. A very specific debt to some very dangerous people. The room suddenly felt colder. What are you talking about? James loosened his tie slightly, a gesture I recognized, buying time to choose words carefully. 4 years ago, Chen Dynamics was failing. Victoria had a handful of clients, but we were hemorrhaging cash. The business model wasn't working. She came to me for another investment. I said no. I told her she needed to pivot or shut down. He paused. So she found other investors. Visual. A contract being signed. But the signature isn't on a standard investment document. It's on something darker, more binding. Private equity? I guessed. Worse. Marcus Chen before he was her strategic VP, before he was her lover. He was a fixer for a venture capital group called Vanguard Partners. Vanguard, the same name as the contract that had triggered all of this. They're not a normal VC firm, James continued. They invest in struggling companies, but their terms are unconventional, high interest, personal guarantees. And if you can't pay, they find other ways to collect. Victoria borrowed from loan sharks. Sophisticated loan sharks. They gave her $3 million. Enough to keep Chen Dynamics alive. Long enough to land real clients. The terms were brutal. 15% annual interest, personally guaranteed by Victoria. And if she defaulted, they had the right to seize company assets and pursue personal bankruptcy. My mind was racing. The Strategic Development Fund. She wasn't just embezzling. She was trying to make payments. She was making payments. For 3 years, she stayed current. But 6 months ago, she missed one, then another. She's now $800,000 in arrears, and Vanguard is losing patience. Visual, a ledger, payments marked in red, the numbers growing, the pressure mounting. Why are you telling me this? Because Marcus Chen, your predecessor, your wife's lover, he's not just her affair. He's Vanguard's representative. He was sent to Chen Dynamics to monitor their investment. And when Victoria started missing payments, his job changed. He's supposed to extract value any way he can. The pieces were clicking into place. The inflated expenses, the false invoices, Marcus's signatures on everything. He's stealing from her, I said slowly, taking what she owes Vanguard directly from the company. Yes, and when the audit completes, it'll look like Victoria and Marcus conspired to defraud Chen Dynamics together. Vanguard gets their money back through the settlement. Victoria goes to prison, and they walk away clean. I sat back down. My legs felt weak. You wanted to know why she fired you, James said. It wasn't just about Marcus. It was about protecting you. If you were still COO when this exploded, you'd be implicated. Your signatures on the frameworks, your oversight of operations, you'd be the first person prosecutors would look at. So she sacrificed me to save me. In her mind, yes. She thought if you were gone, you'd be safe. that she could handle this alone. James's voice cracked slightly. She was wrong. She can't handle this. It's going to destroy her. Unless someone who knows how to navigate corporate fraud, who has credibility with regulators, who can prove the real source of the theft, unless someone like that steps in to help her. Someone like me. Visual. The rain outside intensifying. Thunder in the distance. A storm building. If I don't come back, I said quietly. What happens to her? The audit completes. The board moves to terminate her. Marcus provides evidence that she authorized everything. Vanguard files a lawsuit to recover their investment. Criminal charges follow. Victoria loses everything. The company, her reputation, probably her freedom. And 40 innocent employees lose their jobs. And if I do come back, you have the operational knowledge to prove what actually happened. You can show the audit committee that the theft originated with Vanguard's representative, not Victoria. You can negotiate a settlement that protects the company. You can save her. It was elegant. A trap disguised as salvation. There's just one problem, I said. To do that, I'd have to leave Titan, break my contract with Robert, make an enemy of the most powerful consultant in the industry, and trust that Victoria won't throw me under the bus the second it's convenient. Yes, and you're asking me to do this because you're her father and you love her. Yes, even though she embezzled from her own company, even though she betrayed me, even though she's proven she can't be trusted. Yes, James met my eyes, because family is the only thing that matters in the end, and because you loved her once. Maybe you still do. Visual, a wedding photo, young faces, hopeful, a promise made when promises still meant something. I stood up again. This time, James didn't try to stop me. I need time to think, I said. You have 2 weeks. After that, the audit completes, and the choice is made for you. I walked to the door, stopped, with my hand on the handle. Mr. Chen, why did you really invest in Victoria's company? He was quiet for a moment. Because when her mother died, I failed her. I was so focused on my own grief, my own business, that I didn't see how much she was struggling, and I've been trying to fix that mistake ever since. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. No, he agreed. But you can stand by them while they figure out how to save themselves. I left him there, sitting alone in that expensive private dining room with untouched food and the weight of impossible choices. Outside, the rain had turned into a downpour. I didn't have an umbrella. I stood under the restaurant awning, watching water cascade down, and pulled out my phone. One new text from Victoria. My father's going to try to manipulate you. Don't believe him, and don't come back. You're better off where you are. End quote. Even now, even trapped in a nightmare of her own making, she was trying to protect me. Or maybe she was trying to protect herself. I didn't go home that night. Home was the apartment Victoria and I shared, though calling it ours felt like a lie now. Her clothes in the closet, her coffee cups in the cabinet. The life we'd built together, hollow as a stage set. Instead, I checked into a hotel, not the Whitmore. I couldn't stomach the thought of staying in the same place where she'd been with Marcus. I chose something anonymous, a business hotel near the financial district, where people asked no questions and expected no stories. I sat by the window and watched the city wake up. James Chen's words played on repeat in my mind. Family is the only thing that matters in the end. You loved her once. Maybe you still do. Did I? Visual. Flashback Victoria laughing at something I'd said. A rare, genuine moment. The version of her that only I got to see. Or thought I did. My phone buzzed. 6:47 a.m. A text from Robert Sullivan. Saw your location ping from downtown last night. Late meeting? Hope you're not having second thoughts. We have a strategy session at 9. Don't be late. He was tracking my location. Of course he was. Everyone was tracking everyone in this game. I typed back, "I'll be there." But I didn't move. I just sat there, watching the sunrise paint the buildings gold, trying to figure out when I'd become a chess piece in everyone else's game. Visual, Titan Strategic Group offices, conference room, floor-to-ceiling windows, a team assembled around a table. The strategy session was already underway when I arrived at 9:15. Robert glanced at his watch but said nothing. The message was clear. I was late. I was on probation. "Glad you could join us," he said, voice pleasant but edged with something sharper. "We were just discussing our approach to the Vanguard Industries contract." I froze. Vanguard. Sarah was there. She must have started already, faster than I'd expected. She wouldn't meet my eyes. There were 3 other executives I didn't know yet, all looking at presentation slides on the screen. Chen Dynamics has a $12 million restructuring contract with Vanguard Industries. Robert continued. 3-year timeline, currently 6 months in. David, you're familiar with this project. Too familiar. I'd built the entire operational framework. I am. Good, because Vanguard's CEO reached out to me yesterday. Apparently, they're having concerns about Chen Dynamics' performance. Delays, cost overruns, strategic misalignment. Robert smiled. It wasn't kind. They're open to hearing alternative proposals. Visual. The presentation slide. Vanguard Industries logo. Project timeline. A contract worth millions. Being dangled like bait. "You want to steal their contract," I said. "I want to provide superior service to a client who's being underserved by their current provider. That's called competition." Robert's eyes met mine. "And you're the perfect person to lead the pitch. You know their needs. You know Chen Dynamics' weaknesses. You can show them exactly why we're the better choice." Around the table, the executives were nodding. This made sense to them. This was business. But I was thinking about what James had told me. Marcus was Vanguard's representative. This wasn't just a contract. This was the lever they were using to destroy Victoria. If I took this pitch, if I helped Robert steal Vanguard Industries from Chen Dynamics, I'd be accelerating Victoria's collapse. The contract was worth 40% of Chen Dynamics' annual revenue. Losing it would be catastrophic. "I need to think about this," I said. The room went quiet. Robert set down his coffee cup very deliberately. "Excuse me?" "This is a significant move. I need to review the ethical implications." "Ethical implications?" One of the executives, a woman named Patricia, VP of Business Development, laughed. "They fired you. They're mismanaging a major contract. What ethical complications could there possibly be?" "David," Robert's voice was steel now. "Can I see you in my office? Excuse us." Visual. A door closing. 2 men alone. The temperature in the room dropping. Robert didn't sit. He stood by the window, hands in pockets, looking out at the city. When he spoke, his voice was calm, too calm. "I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Did you meet with James Chen last night?" My chest tightened. "How did you—" "I have friends at Meridian. They mentioned seeing you in a private dining room with Chen Dynamics board chairman." He turned to face me. "So, I'll ask again. Did you meet with James Chen?" No point lying. "Yes." "And what did he offer you?" "A chance to come back, run Chen Dynamics as CEO, clean up the mess. And you're considering it." "I'm considering all my options." Robert walked to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, threw it down in front of me. "That's your contract with Titan. Page 7, Section 3. Do you remember what it says?" I didn't need to look. Non-compete clause. I can't work for a direct competitor for 18 months after termination. Chen Dynamics is our most direct competitor. If you go back there, you breach this contract. We'll sue you for damages. And given that you'd be taking proprietary information about our strategy, our clients, our operational plans, we'd win. Easily. Visual, a contract, legal language, a trap closing. You can't enforce a non-compete if I was terminated without cause by my previous employer, I said. Victoria's separation agreement was poorly written. The precedent is different when you voluntarily leave a new position to rejoin your old company. Robert sat down now, folded his hands on the desk. I've already had our legal team review this. You want to go back to Victoria? Fine, but it'll cost you everything you'd earn there for the next 18 months. Every dollar, plus damages, plus legal fees. He'd thought of everything. You're trapping me here. I'm holding you to an agreement you signed 3 days ago. An agreement that gave you a 40% pay increase, equity in the company, and a chance to prove yourself as a CEO. His voice softened slightly. David, I understand James Chen played on your emotions. That's what he does. But you need to see what's really happening here. I'm listening. Victoria Chen is going down. The audit will complete. The embezzlement will go public, and her company will implode. That's not a possibility. It's a certainty. The only question is whether you go down with her or whether you're on the winning side when the smoke clears. And the Vanguard contract is a life raft. If Chen Dynamics loses it, they collapse faster, cleaner. Less collateral damage to innocent employees who'd be better off finding new positions now rather than clinging to a sinking ship. Visual. A ship tilting in dark water. People scrambling. The moral calculus of controlled demolition. I thought about the 40 employees James had mentioned. Good people. My former colleagues. Sarah had already jumped ship. Was I supposed to leave everyone else to drown? What if there's another way? I asked. There isn't. What if I could fix Chen Dynamics? Prove the fraud came from Vanguard's representative, not Victoria? Save the company without burning it down? Robert studied me for a long moment. You still love her. This isn't about love, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, you're about to sacrifice everything you've built here. Your reputation, your financial future, your leverage to save a woman who fired you, betrayed you, and would absolutely throw you under the bus if it served her interests. You don't know that. I know exactly that. I've known Victoria Chen for 7 years. I've watched her destroy people without blinking. Hell, she destroyed me. Robert leaned forward. Do you know why I really hired you? Not just to hurt her, but because I saw what she did to you, and I saw myself. 8 years ago, standing exactly where you are, wondering if I should save someone who didn't want to be saved. Visual. Younger Robert. Different office. Same expression of betrayal. What happened? I tried to save her. Tried to fix the damage she'd done when she left Titan. Offered her a settlement, a recommendation, a path forward. He laughed bitterly. She used the information I gave her to poach 3 more of my consultants. Took the settlement money and used it to fund her startup. Turned my olive branch into a weapon. I'm not you. No, you're worse. Because you married her. You tied your life to hers, and now you're watching it all unravel and telling yourself you can fix it. Robert stood. You can't. Victoria Chen is a black hole. She'll consume everything around her. Your money, your reputation, your future, and she'll never be grateful. She'll just expect more. I wanted to argue, but I thought about her text last night. Don't come back. You're better off where you are. Even her protectiveness was framed around what I could do for her. Staying away so I wouldn't get caught in her mess. I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow morning. We're presenting the Vanguard pitch on Friday. I need to know if you're leading it. Robert walked to the door, opened it. And David? Choose carefully. Because whatever you decide, there's no going back. Visual, a coffee shop, afternoon light. Sarah sitting across from me, hands wrapped around a latte. I called Sarah after the meeting, asked her to meet me somewhere neutral. She chose a place near her apartment, far from both Titan and Chen Dynamics. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, the kind of tired that comes from not sleeping because your brain won't stop running scenarios. "I shouldn't be meeting with you," she said when I sat down. "If Victoria finds out," end quote. "She already knows you sent me that email. It's only a matter of time before she figures out you're coming to Titan." Great. So I've torpedoed my career for nothing. Not for nothing. I slid a folder across the table. Employment contract. Director of Finance and Operations. Salary is 40% higher than what you're making now. Stock options. Full benefits. Start date is Monday. She opened the folder. Read it. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you told the truth when no one else would. Because you're good at what you do. Because Titan needs people with integrity." I paused. "And because I need someone I can trust." Visual, close-up on Sarah's face. The weight of trust, the risk of choosing sides. "What do you need to know?" she asked. "The truth about Vanguard Partners. James Chen told me Victoria borrowed from them, that Marcus is their representative. Is that accurate?" Sarah nodded. "I've been digging since I sent you that email. Vanguard Partners isn't a traditional VC firm. They're more like corporate loan sharks. They specialize in distressed companies, high-interest loans, and when those companies can't pay, they extract value other ways." Exactly. Marcus Chen was placed at Chen Dynamics 2 years ago, right after Victoria missed her first payment. His official title is VP of Strategy, but his real job is asset recovery. The inflated expenses, the false invoices, that's him stealing what Victoria owes. It's brilliant, actually. He gets Victoria to sign off on everything, makes it look like she authorized the theft. When the audit completes, she takes the fall. Vanguard gets their money back through legal settlements or bankruptcy proceedings. Clean hands. I thought about Victoria's text. Don't believe him. Don't come back. She knew. She knew exactly what Marcus was doing, and she was trying to protect me from it. "What happens if Chen Dynamics loses the Vanguard Industries contract?" I asked. Sarah's expression darkened. "Immediate cash flow crisis. That contract generates 40% of annual revenue and covers most of our operational overhead. Without it, we'd have maybe 3 months of runway. Maybe. And the employees? Layoffs. Probably 60–70% of staff within the first month. The rest would jump ship when they saw the writing on the wall. Visual. Empty desks. Boxes being packed. Dreams ending in cardboard and severance packages. So if Robert successfully pitches Vanguard Industries, he's not just hurting Victoria, he's destroying 40 people's livelihoods. Yes, Sarah met my eyes. But those people are going to lose their jobs anyway. The audit completes in 2 weeks. When it does, Chen Dynamics is dead. The only question is whether it's a quick death or a slow one. Unless someone fixes it. You can't fix embezzlement. You can't fix fraud. You can't. She stopped, studied my face. "Oh God, you're thinking about going back." James Chen offered me the CEO position. "David? No, you can't. Victoria will destroy you. Winged flyer. Winged." What if I can prove Marcus is the one stealing? What if I can show the audit committee the real source of the fraud? With what evidence? Marcus has been meticulous. Every signature is Victoria's. Every authorization. He set this up perfectly to make her look guilty. There has to be something. A communication. A transfer. Something that proves he was acting on behalf of Vanguard Partners, not Victoria. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then, there might be. Visual. A flash drive being placed on a table. Small, unremarkable, containing answers. She pulled out her laptop, opened it, navigated to a folder buried deep in her files. When I was investigating the expense discrepancies, I found something odd. There's an email server that Marcus uses, not the official Chen Dynamics email. It's a private domain, supposedly for strategic client communications. Let me guess. Communications with Vanguard partners. I couldn't access it, but I have the server information, the domain registration. If you could get into it, I'd have proof. Maybe, or maybe you'd have nothing. Maybe Marcus is smarter than we think and keeps all the damning stuff offline. Sarah closed her laptop. But even if you found proof, what then? You show the audit committee that Marcus was the thief. They fire him. Victoria still authorized everything. She still signed off on fake invoices. She's still culpable. But it changes the narrative. From embezzler to victim. From criminal to someone who made bad decisions under duress. Is there a difference? I thought about James Chen's story, about Victoria at 12 learning that love was a weakness, about a woman who'd spent her entire adult life building walls so high she couldn't see over them anymore. I think there is, I said quietly. Sarah looked at me like I was insane. You're really going to do this? You're going to walk away from Titan, break your contract, risk everything to save someone who fired you? I'm going to try to save 40 innocent people from losing their jobs because of decisions they had no control over. That's not why you're doing it. No, I admitted. It's not. Visual. A wedding photo. Still on someone's desk somewhere. A promise that maybe, despite everything, still matters. I can't help you with this, Sarah said. I've already committed to Titan. I've signed the contract. I can't. I'm not asking you to. You made the right choice. Get out while you can. I stood up. But I need that server information. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone, texted me something. That's everything I have. Domain, registration details, what little I could find about the hosting service. She looked up at me. David, be careful. Victoria might not want to be saved. And people who don't want to be saved, they fight the hardest against the people trying to help them. I left Sarah at the coffee shop and walked. I didn't have a destination. I just needed to move, to think, to figure out if I was about to make the bravest decision of my life or the stupidest. My phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered. David Morrison. It's me. Victoria. Her voice was different than I'd ever heard it. Smaller. Uncertain. Human. Please, don't come back, she said. Whatever my father told you, whatever promises he made, don't believe them. You're better off where you are. Why do you care? Because... She stopped. I could hear her breathing. Because you deserved better than what I gave you, and I don't want to make it worse. Is Marcus there with you? Silence. Victoria, is Marcus there? He's at the office. I'm at the apartment. Our apartment. Another pause. There's a box of your things by the door. I packed them. You should come get them. I don't care about things. I know. That's what makes this so hard. Visual. A woman sitting alone in an empty apartment, surrounded by success, drowning in it. Tell me the truth, I said, about Vanguard partners, about Marcus, about why you really fired me. I can't. Can't. Or won't. Can't. Or won't. Can't. 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 Does it matter? It matters to me. I could hear her crying now. Actually crying. I'd been married to Victoria Chen for 5 years, and I'd never heard her cry. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything, for all of it. You should hate me." "I should." I agreed. "But you don't." "No." "Why not?" I looked up at the sky, gray clouds gathering, another storm coming. "Because I remember who you were when no one was watching, before the armor, before the walls." I close my eyes, and I keep hoping that person is still in there somewhere. She's not. I killed her a long time ago. "I don't believe you." "Then you're a fool." "Probably." Victoria laughed. It was a broken sound. "Robert's going to destroy me. The Vanguard contract, the audit, all of it. And you're going to help him because it's the smart play. Because I fired you and you owe me nothing. Is that what you think?" "That's what I would do if I were you." "I'm not you." "No. You're better. You always were." Her voice steadied slightly. "Don't come back, David. Whatever you're thinking, don't. I'll survive this. I always do. But if you try to save me, you'll drown too. And I can't. I won't." The line went dead. Visual, a phone screen, call ended. The silence that follows impossible choices. I stood there on the sidewalk, people streaming past me, the city moving at its relentless pace. And I realized something. This wasn't about Victoria. It had never been about Victoria. This was about the man I wanted to be, the person I saw when I looked in the mirror. I could be Robert's weapon, sharp, effective, profitable, or I could be something else, something harder, someone who helped even when it hurt, even when it was stupid, even when the person being saved fought against it. I pulled out my phone, made a call. James Chen answered on the first ring. "Have you decided?" "I'll do it," I said. "I'll come back. I'll try to fix this. But I have conditions." "I'm listening." "I need full access, complete operational control. And I need Victoria to cooperate with the investigation into Marcus. No protection, no covers. If she wants to save Chen Dynamics, she has to be willing to burn the man who's destroying it. That won't be easy for her. It's not supposed to be easy. Redemption never is." A long pause. Then, "Deal. When can you start?" I looked at my watch. 4:47 p.m. In 17 hours, I was supposed to present the Vanguard pitch for Robert Sullivan, the pitch that would destroy Victoria's company and secure my position at Titan. "Monday morning," I said. "I'll handle Titan. You handle the board." I hung up. And then I did the hardest thing I'd done in my entire life. I called Robert Sullivan. Robert answered on the second ring. "David, tell me you're calling with good news about tomorrow's presentation." I took a breath, felt the ground shift beneath me one more time. "I'm calling to resign." Silence, the kind that feels like pressure building before an explosion. "Say that again," Robert said. His voice was very quiet. "I'm resigning from Titan Strategic Group, effective immediately. I appreciate the opportunity, but I can't." "You're going back to her." "Not a question. An accusation." "I'm going back to Chen Dynamics to try to fix." "To fix what? A company built on fraud? A woman who destroyed you?" His voice was rising now. "Do you understand what you're doing? Do you understand what this costs you?" "Yes." "I don't think you do. Let me spell it out." I could hear him moving, pacing probably. "You signed a contract with Titan 3 days ago. You have access to proprietary strategy, confidential client information, competitive intelligence. If you walk out that door and go to a direct competitor, I will sue you for breach of contract. I will sue you for theft of trade secrets. I will sue you so hard that you'll spend the next 5 years in depositions, and the next 10 years paying damages." Visual. legal documents, litigation, a future measured in lawyer fees and regret. I understand the risk. Do you? Because I don't think you understand who you're dealing with. I've been playing this game for 30 years. I've destroyed people who were better positioned than you, smarter than you, better connected than you. His voice dropped to something colder. And they all made the same mistake you're making now. They thought they were special. Maybe that's the special, that the rules didn't apply to them, that love or loyalty or some misguided sense of nobility would protect them. This isn't about love. Then what is it about? Because from where I stand, you're sacrificing everything. Your career, your financial future, your reputation to save a woman who embezzled from her own company and would absolutely throw you to the wolves the second it served her interests. I thought about Victoria's voice on the phone, broken, crying, "Don't come back. You'll drown too." "It's about being able to look at myself in the mirror," I said. Robert laughed. It was a harsh sound. "Nobility. Christ, you really are a fool." "Maybe." "There's no maybe about it. You're walking away from the opportunity of a lifetime. CEO of a major consulting firm, equity, resources, a chance to prove yourself at the highest level. And for what? To clean up Victoria Chen's mess? To play white knight for someone who doesn't want to be saved? She has 40 employees who don't deserve to lose their jobs because of decisions they didn't make. Those employees will be fine. They're talented. They'll find new positions. Better positions, probably, at companies that aren't run by criminals." Robert's voice sharpened. "But you won't be fine, because I'm going to make an example of you. I'm going to make sure everyone in this industry knows what happens when you betray me." Visual. A man's reflection in a dark window. The city behind him. The choice made. The consequences coming. "I'm sorry it has to be this way," I said. "No, you're not. You're choosing this. You're choosing her over everything else. So don't apologize for it. Own it." He paused. "I'll have legal draft the lawsuit. Expect service within 48 hours. And David, I hope she's worth it. Because this is going to cost you everything." The line went dead. I stood there in the rain, phone in hand, and felt the enormity of what I'd just done wash over me like cold water. I'd quit a job most people would kill for, broken a contract with one of the most powerful men in the industry, made an enemy who had the resources and the will to destroy me. And for what? A marriage that was already over, a company that was drowning in fraud, a woman who'd told me explicitly not to come back. Sarah was right. I was insane. But I was also free. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was making a choice based on who I wanted to be, not who someone else needed me to be. Visual. Rain washing down. A baptism. A cleansing. The old life ending. Something new beginning. Visual. Morning. Chen Dynamics headquarters. The building I'd helped build, helped fill with people and purpose. Walking through the doors feels like stepping back in time. I arrived at Chen Dynamics at 7:30 Monday morning. Early enough that most of the staff wouldn't be there yet. I needed to see Victoria first, privately, before this became a spectacle. The security guard Marcus, ironically, a different Marcus, looked shocked to see me. "Mr. Morrison? I thought you—" "I'm back, temporarily. Is Miss Chen in her office?" "She's been here since 6. Do you need me to—" "I know the way." I walked through the familiar lobby, past the familiar artwork Victoria had chosen abstract pieces about transformation and disruption, up the familiar elevator to the executive floor. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. Victoria's office door was closed, light showing underneath. I knocked. "Come in." Visual. An office that used to feel like home. Now, it feels like foreign territory. Victoria behind her desk, looking smaller than I remembered. Dark circles under her eyes. Coffee cups scattered around. She hasn't slept. She looked up when I entered. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I told you not to come back," she said finally. "I know. I told you it would destroy you." "Probably." She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city the way she always did when she was trying to compose herself. "Robert called me yesterday," she said. "He's suing you for breach of contract. $3 million in damages. He's also filing an injunction to prevent you from working in strategic consulting for 18 months. She turned to face me. "You did this anyway." "Yes. Why?" Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. Because 40 people don't deserve to lose their jobs because we made bad choices. Because your father asked me to help. Because I stopped. Started over. Because I needed to know if the woman I married was still in there somewhere, under all the armor. Victoria's eyes were wet. She blinked rapidly, trying to control it, failing. "She's not. I told you. I killed her." "I don't believe you." "You should." She walked back to her desk, pulled out a folder, handed it to me. "This is the full audit report. Preliminary findings. It's worse than you think." I opened the folder, read, felt my stomach drop. The embezzlement was broader than Sarah had documented. Not just the Strategic Development Fund. There were vendor kickbacks, inflated consulting fees, personal expenses charged to client accounts. Over 18 months, nearly $2 million had been misappropriated, and every single transaction had Victoria's signature. Visual. Documents spreading across a desk. Red ink. Highlighted sections. A case built from paper. And betrayal. "Marcus did this," I said. "Marcus authorized some of it. I authorized the rest." "Victoria, I'm not going to lie to you. Not anymore." She sat down heavily. "When Vanguard Partners came to me 4 years ago, I was desperate. The company was failing. I'd burned through my father's investment. I had no options. They offered me $3 million, and I took it without reading the fine print. The 15% interest. The personal guarantees. The penalty clauses. The acceleration provisions. The fact that if I missed a single payment, the entire debt came due immediately." She laughed bitterly. "I thought I was so smart. Thought I could manage it. Build the company fast enough to pay them back. But you couldn't." "No. The first 2 years were fine. Business was good. I was making payments. Everything was under control. But then we started scaling too fast. We took on projects we weren't ready for. Overpromised to clients. Started burning cash faster than we were bringing it in." I thought about all those late nights. All those times I'd warned her we were growing too aggressively. That we needed to slow down. Build stronger foundations. She'd never listened. 6 months ago, I missed a payment. Victoria continued. "Vanguard sent Marcus. Not as punishment as insurance. He was supposed to help me manage the business, get us back on track. And for a while, he did." Visual. Flashback Marcus, in a suit, charming smile, helpful demeanor, a wolf in consultant's clothing. When did it change? 2 months ago, I missed another payment. Marcus came to my office, closed the door, and told me the truth. That Vanguard didn't want me to succeed. They wanted me to fail. That I was more valuable to them as a bankruptcy liquidation than as a going concern. Because they could seize the assets. Everything. The client contracts, the intellectual property, the staff. They'd sell it off to competitors, probably to Robert Sullivan, ironically, and make back double their investment. Plus interest. Plus penalties. And Marcus was there to facilitate that. Victoria nodded. He started inflating expenses, creating fake vendors, siphoning money out of the company in ways that looked like my decisions. building a case that I was embezzling so that when Vanguard filed for bankruptcy protection, there'd be criminal charges. I'd go to prison. They'd walk away clean. Why didn't you stop him? How? He had leverage. He knew about every mistake I'd made, every corner I'd cut, every regulatory gray area I'd pushed into. And he made it clear that if I tried to fight back, he'd burn everything down. The company, my reputation, my father's company, because James co-signed one of the loans. Visual, a hand holding a match, standing in a room soaked with gasoline. The threat implicit. So you fired me. So I fired you, Victoria echoed, because you were starting to ask questions, starting to notice the discrepancies. And I knew if you stayed, you'd either figure it out and try to fix it, which would put you in Marcus's crosshairs, or you'd get swept up in the charges when everything collapsed. Either way, you'd be destroyed. You were protecting me. I was protecting myself from watching you get hurt because of my mistakes. She looked at me, really looked at me. I've failed at a lot of things, David. I failed as a CEO. I failed as a wife. I failed at being the person you thought you married. But I wasn't going to fail at keeping you safe. The office felt very quiet. The affair with Marcus, I said. Was it real? Victoria closed her eyes. It was strategic. He made it clear that cooperation would be rewarded, that if I played along, he'd find a way to minimize the damage. I told myself it was just business. Just another transaction. She opened her eyes. But it wasn't, and I hated myself every single time. I should have felt vindicated, relieved that the affair wasn't real, that she hadn't chosen Marcus over me out of genuine desire. But all I felt was sadness. For her, for us, for what we'd both become. I'm here to help you fix this, I said. But I need total honesty. No more secrets. No more protection. If we're going to save Chen Dynamics, I need to know everything. You can't save it. The audit completes in 10 days. When it does, we're going to prove that Marcus Chen was the primary actor in the fraud, that he was acting on behalf of Vanguard Partners to deliberately sabotage the company, that you made mistakes, but you weren't the criminal mastermind the evidence suggests. The evidence says otherwise. Evidence can be recontextualized. We just need to find the proof. What proof? I pulled out my phone, showed her the information Sarah had sent. Marcus has been using a private email server, supposedly for strategic client communications. But I'm betting he's been using it to coordinate with Vanguard Partners. If we can access those emails, we'd have proof of conspiracy. Exactly. Visual. A key. Small. Digital. The lock it opens containing answers. Victoria studied the server information. This is sophisticated. The encryption alone would take weeks to crack. We don't have weeks. We don't need to crack it. We just need to get Marcus to access it in front of us. Once he logs in, we can capture the credentials. How? By giving him a reason to need those emails. By making him panic. I sat down across from her. Does Marcus know I'm back? Not yet. I told the board you were coming on as an independent consultant to help with the audit response. They think you're here to assess operational continuity. Marcus thinks you're just helping me prepare financials. Good. Let's keep it that way. I need you to set up a meeting this afternoon. You, me, Marcus, and the audit committee. Tell them we've found discrepancies we need to discuss. What discrepancies? Vendor payments that don't match our records. Consulting fees that seem excessive. We'll keep it vague, but concerning enough that Marcus thinks we're getting close to uncovering something. Victoria frowned. He'll panic. That's the idea. When people panic, they make mistakes. They reach for insurance. And if his insurance is in those emails, he'll access them. And when he does, we'll be watching. Visual. A trap being set. Pieces moving into position. The hunter becoming the hunted. Victoria was quiet for a long moment.
This is risky. If Marcus figures out what we're doing,
then we're in the same position we're in now, drowning, but at least we're fighting. Robert's gonna sue you into oblivion. Let him. The board might fire both of us when this is over. Probably. We could both end up in prison. Maybe. She smiled, then, a real smile. Small, sad, but real. You really are insane, she said. I learned from the best. Visual. Conference room. 4 hours later, the audit committee assembled 3 board members, including James Chen, Victoria at one end of the table, Marcus at the other, and me in the middle, with a laptop and a stack of financial documents. Marcus had dressed for this. Expensive suit, confident posture, the expression of a man who thought he was in control. He didn't know I was coming until he walked into the room. I watched his face when he saw me, the micro expression of shock, then calculation, then smooth transition to pleasant surprise. David, I didn't realize you'd be joining us. Last-minute addition, I said. Victoria thought my operational background might help clarify some of the audit findings. Of course. He sat down, perfectly composed. Always good to have another perspective. James Chen was watching both of us carefully. The other board members, Patricia Young and Harold Ross, looked uncomfortable. They knew this was going to be ugly. I opened my laptop, pulled up a spreadsheet. I've been reviewing the preliminary audit findings, I said. And I've noticed some concerning patterns in our vendor relationships. Specifically, consulting fees paid to external firms over the past 18 months. I displayed the spreadsheet on the screen, highlighted 3 vendor names: Apex Strategy Consulting, Meridian Advisory Group, Vanguard Solutions. I looked at Marcus. These 3 firms received a combined $840,000 in consulting fees. Can you help me understand what services they provided? Marcus didn't blink. Of course. Apex handled market research for the Vanguard Industries contract. Meridian did competitive analysis for several client pitches. And Vanguard Solutions provided specialized expertise in corporate restructuring. Interesting. I clicked to another screen. Because I can't find any deliverables from these firms in our project files. No reports, no presentations, no documentation of any kind. The work was integrated into our internal deliverables, Marcus said smoothly. We don't typically maintain separate documentation for sub-consultant contributions. That's unusual. Our standard practice is to maintain detailed records of all external consulting work. I looked at Victoria. Isn't that right? She nodded. Every external consultant should have a paper trail, proposals, statements of work, deliverables, invoices. Exactly. So I did some digging. I pulled up another screen. Corporate registration documents. Apex Strategy Consulting was incorporated 6 months ago, filed in Delaware. The registered agent is a corporate services company that specializes in shell corporations. Marcus's jaw tightened slightly. Many consulting firms use Delaware for tax purposes. True, but Apex has no website, no LinkedIn presence, no client testimonials. And according to the Delaware database, they've never filed an annual report. I paused. It's like they don't actually exist. Visual. Marcus's hands, clenching slightly. The first crack in the armor. I'd have to review the vetting process. I already did. I pulled up emails. The engagement with Apex was approved by you. Sole signature. No competitive bids. No vetting committee review. Just a direct contract for $280,000. That was within my authorization limits for strategic consulting. It was. But here's what's interesting. The payment didn't go to Apex Strategy Consulting. I showed the bank records. It went to an account at First Caribbean International Bank, routed through 2 intermediary accounts. And the final destination? I looked directly at him. An account registered to Vanguard Partners. The room went silent. Marcus's face was very still. That's impossible. There must be an error in the routing. No error. I had our bank pull the complete transaction history. Every payment to these 3 consulting firms ended up in accounts controlled by Vanguard partners. I sat back. So either you were incompetent in your vetting process, or you were deliberately funneling money to Vanguard. Which is it? Harold Ross leaned forward. Marcus, is this true? I need to review the documentation. We have the documentation, Victoria said quietly. All of it. Every fake vendor. Every inflated invoice. Every transaction that went to Vanguard instead of legitimate consulting services. This is absurd. I was trying to help the company. By stealing from it? James Chen's voice was ice. By creating a paper trail that implicates my daughter in fraud? Visual. A man cornered. Options narrowing. The moment before the strike. Marcus stood up. I don't have to sit here and be accused. Sit down, James said. We're not done. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea. You're going to need one. James pulled out his phone. Because I'm calling the FBI. And they're going to be very interested in Vanguard Partners' asset recovery practices. Marcus looked at Victoria. You stupid bitch. You have no idea what you've done. Vanguard is going to find themselves under federal investigation for fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. I said calmly, and you're going to be their star witness, assuming you want to cooperate. Marcus's face was pale now. He reached for his phone, and I watched him unlock it, watched him open his email app, watched him navigate to a private server, and I watched our IT consultant sitting in a van outside the building capture every credential he entered. Visual, a screen, code scrolling, access granted, the vault opening. Meeting adjourned, James said. Marcus, you're suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. Security will escort you from the building. You can't. I can. And I am. James stood. David, Victoria, my office, now. Marcus looked at me as security arrived, and I saw it in his eyes. The realization that he'd been played, that every word, every accusation, every piece of evidence, it was all designed to make him panic, to make him reach for his insurance, and in doing so, hand us the keys to his kingdom. Visual. A man being escorted out. Box of personal belongings. Career. Ending in disgrace. The hunter. Caught in his own trap. Victoria touched my arm as we left the conference room. We did it, she whispered. We got the access. Now comes the hard part. What's harder than that? I looked at her. Proving you're worth saving. We had access to Marcus's email server by 8 p.m. By 9 p.m., we knew we'd found something bigger than corporate fraud. By midnight, we knew we'd stumbled into something that could destroy more than just Chen Dynamics. James Chen sat at the head of the conference table, reading glasses perched on his nose, scrolling through email after email. Victoria was to my left, her face pale in the laptop glow. I was in the middle. Our IT consultant, a woman named Riley, who James had brought in from his own company, working beside me to decrypt and organize the files. Jesus Christ, James muttered, reading something on his screen. Marcus wasn't just stealing from Chen Dynamics. What do you mean? Victoria looked up from her own laptop. I mean, Vanguard Partners has done this before. Multiple times. There's a whole folder here labeled Asset Recovery Protocol. It's a playbook. James turned his laptop around. Chen Dynamics is case study number 17. Visual, email threads, dates going back years, company names. Some I recognized, most I didn't. A pattern of destruction. I pulled up the folder, started reading. The protocol was elegant in its brutality. Vanguard Partners would identify struggling companies with valuable assets, client lists, intellectual property, industry relationships. They'd offer emergency financing at predatory rates. Then they'd place someone inside someone like Marcus to systematically sabotage the company while creating a paper trail of fraud that would implicate the CEO. When the company inevitably collapsed under the weight of theft and mismanagement, Vanguard would swoop in. They'd cooperate with prosecutors, offering evidence against the CEO. They'd file bankruptcy protection claims. And they'd acquire the company's assets for pennies on the dollar, then resell them to competitors at massive profit. "How many companies?" Victoria asked quietly. Riley pulled up a spreadsheet. "According to these records, 17 over the past 8 years. Combined asset value of approximately $340 million. Vanguard's total investment? $67 million. Their recovery through liquidation and resale? $890 million. The numbers hung in the air like an indictment. "That's racketeering," James said. "That's systematic fraud on a scale that crosses state lines, probably international lines. This is federal." "This is more than federal," I said, reading through an email from someone named Richard Voss, apparently Vanguard's CEO. "Look at this." I put the email on the screen. From r.voss@vanguard-partners.com to m.chen@strategic-dev.net. Subject: Chen Dynamics. Timeline acceleration. Date: 3 weeks ago. Marcus. The board is getting impatient. Victoria Chen is proving more resilient than anticipated. We need to accelerate the timeline. Push harder on the expense inflation. Make it obvious enough that the audit catches it, but maintain her signature authority on everything. We need her criminally liable, not just negligent. Also, the Morrison problem. You said he was removed, but I'm hearing he's consulting with Robert Sullivan at Titan. That's a potential complication. Sullivan knows our methods. If Morrison gives him insight into Chen Dynamics' operational framework, Sullivan could reverse engineer what we're doing. Handle it. Whatever it takes. RV. Visual. Close up on the words. Handle it. Whatever it takes. The threat. Implicit. They wanted you gone too, Victoria said, looking at me. Not just from Chen Dynamics. From the industry. Because I knew how the systems worked, I could have helped someone figure out the fraud. I scrolled down. Found Marcus's response. There. Had all me. That quas. That is. Help locksness. There. That is. There. That is. There quas. There. There quas. What I wilm. Morrison is contained. Sullivan hired him as CEO at Titan, likely as revenge play against V. Chen. He'll be focused on competing with CD, not investigating internal finances. And even if he did look into it, he'd find V. Chen's signatures on everything. The trail leads to her, not us. Timeline. I can have the expense reports flagged by next week's audit review. That should trigger board action within 10 days. Criminal referral within 30. We'll be in liquidation by Q2. Mick. I felt Victoria's hand find mine under the table. Her fingers were cold. They planned all of this, she whispered. Every step. They were going to have me arrested. They were going to have me arrested. They still might, James said grimly. Your signatures are on those documents. The question is whether we can prove you were coerced, manipulated, or operating under duress when you signed them. I wasn't coerced. I was desperate. Victoria pulled her hand back, wrapped her arms around herself. I took their money, knowing the terms were predatory. I signed off on expenses I should have questioned. I made every mistake they needed me to make. Under false pretenses, I said. Marcus presented himself as a strategic advisor. He was actually an asset recovery specialist. You didn't have informed consent. That's a legal argument. It's not the truth. Victoria looked at me. I need you to understand something. I'm not innocent here. I made bad choices. I cut corners. I prioritized growth over sustainability. Yes, Marcus exploited that. Yes, Vanguard weaponized my mistakes. But the mistakes were real. Visual, a woman facing herself in a window's reflection. The truth, painful but necessary. Riley cleared her throat. There's something else you should see. It's in a folder marked Insurance. She pulled it up. The folder contained recordings, audio files, dozens of them. What are these? James asked. Conversations between Marcus and Victoria, Riley said. Time-stamped, dating back 6 months. My chest tightened. He recorded her? Everything, every meeting, every private conversation. Riley clicked on one file. Some of these are personal. Victoria's face went white. Don't, but Riley had already hit play. Victoria's voice filled the conference room. Tired, defeated. I can't keep doing this, Marcus. The numbers don't work. The audit's going to find everything. Marcus's voice, smooth, reassuring. You let me worry about the audit. Just keep signing what I put in front of you. Trust me. I don't trust you. I don't trust anyone anymore. You trusted David. Look where that got you. A long pause. Then Victoria, her voice breaking. David was the only real thing in my life, and I destroyed him to protect him from this, from you, from what I've become. Then make it worth it. Sign the documents, keep the company running, and when this is over, you'll have enough money offshore to start fresh. Somewhere Vanguard can't touch you. Riley stopped the playback. The silence in the conference room was absolute. He was offering you a way out, I said slowly. Money, offshore. Escape. I never took it, Victoria said. I told him no, multiple times. That's probably in there too. Riley nodded. It is, but there are also recordings where you sound like you're considering it, where you ask about logistics, about how the money would be transferred, about whether you could protect your father's company from liability. Asking questions isn't accepting an offer, James said. No, but it shows intent, or at least prosecutors could argue it does. Riley looked at Victoria. These recordings are going to be complicated for your defense. They show you were aware of the fraud, that you had opportunities to stop it, that Marcus presented you with options, and you didn't immediately refuse all of them. Visual, a recording interface, waveforms showing conversations, the complexity of human interaction reduced to audio files and evidence. Victoria stood up, walked to the window. The city was dark, except for scattered office lights, other people working late, other crises being managed. Here's what I want you to do, she said without turning around. Take these emails. Take the recordings. Take everything that proves Vanguard Partners is running a systematic fraud operation. Give it to the FBI. Let them build their case. Victoria, James started. And include everything that shows my involvement. The signatures, the conversations, the moments where I should have fought harder and didn't. She turned to face us. I'm not going to hide behind legal technicalities. I made choices. I'm going to own them. That's admirable, I said. It's also stupid. You give prosecutors everything, they'll use it. You'll go to prison while Marcus cuts a deal and Vanguard's executives walk away with barely a fine. Then what do you suggest? I looked at the screens, at the evidence spread across 3 laptops, at the story these documents told. We build a narrative, I said. Not a lie, the truth, but presented in a way that shows the complete picture. I'm listening. We show that Vanguard Partners has a pattern of predatory lending and asset stripping. We document 17 previous cases. We prove this is systematic, not opportunistic. We establish that Marcus Chen is a professional asset recovery specialist, not a strategic consultant. We show that he systematically deceived you about his role and intentions. That doesn't erase my signatures, Victoria said. No, but it provides context. You signed documents based on fraudulent representations. You were operating under duress, not physical duress, but economic. You were trying to save a company that was being deliberately destroyed from within. I pulled up the timeline, and here's the key. We can prove when you figured it out. What do you mean? 2 months ago, when Marcus told you the truth about Vanguard's intentions, from that point forward, your behavior changes. You stop signing off on suspicious expenses. You start documenting things more carefully. You separate your personal finances from the company. And I found what I was looking for. An email Victoria had sent to herself. You start building your own evidence. Visual. Email dated 6 weeks ago. From Victoria to Victoria. Subject line. Record. In case I don't survive this. Victoria had written a detailed memo to herself, explaining Marcus's confession, documenting the threats he'd made, describing her decision to fire me, to protect me from the impending collapse, outlining her plan to gather evidence against Vanguard, even while appearing to cooperate. You were building a case, James said quietly. Even then, I didn't know if it would matter. I thought I was too far gone, but I couldn't just give up. I couldn't let them win completely. Victoria looked at me. I just needed time, and I needed you safe. That's why I fired you. That's why I pushed you away. I knew it was ending. I just wanted to make sure you survived it. I stood up, walked over to her. We stood face to face, the window behind us reflecting two people who'd been strangers and lovers and enemies and maybe somehow were finding their way to being partners again. We're going to fight this, I said. Together, the right way. What's the right way? The truth, all of it, including the parts that make you look bad, but presented with enough context that people can understand how you got here. I turned to James. We need a lawyer. The best criminal defense attorney in the state. Someone who specializes in white-collar fraud. I know someone, James said. Margaret Cross. She defended the Enron whistleblowers. She's expensive, but cost doesn't matter. Get her. And what do we do with this evidence in the meantime? Riley asked, gesturing at the laptops. We make copies, multiple copies, encrypted backups in different locations. Then we package everything, the emails, the recordings, the financial documents, into a comprehensive report. Timeline, pattern analysis, clear documentation of Vanguard's systematic fraud. And then we decide who gets it first. FBI, SEC, the press. I looked at Victoria. That's your call.
Visual. A woman at a crossroads. The weight of the decision visible in her posture.
The FBI, Victoria said. If we go to the press first, it looks like we're trying to manipulate public opinion. If we go to the SEC, it becomes about regulatory violations, not criminal fraud. The FBI can coordinate with both. They can build a RICO case against Vanguard. They can protect the other companies who've been targeted. They can also arrest you, James warned. Maybe. Probably. Victoria's voice was steady now. But at least I'll know I did the right thing in the end. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Email from Robert Sullivan's attorney. Subject line, formal notice breach of contract litigation. I deleted it without reading. David, Victoria had seen my face. What is it? Nothing important. Robert's suing you. Yes. For how much? $3 million, plus injunction preventing me from working in strategic consulting. That's... Victoria looked stricken. You can't afford that. Your savings, the equity you gave up at Titan. You'll be bankrupt. Probably. Why are you smiling? Because 2 weeks ago, I would have cared, would have been terrified, would have thought my life was over. I looked at the evidence on the screens, at the chance to do something that actually mattered. Now, I'm realizing there are things more important than money. Visual. A man and woman, separated by mistakes in time, connected by something harder to name. the city lights behind them like stars. James was making calls, setting up a meeting with Margaret Cross for first thing tomorrow, coordinating with federal prosecutors he knew from his own business dealings, building the framework for what came next. Riley was organizing the evidence, creating the master timeline, making sure everything was documented, verified, defensible. And Victoria and I stood by the window, looking out at the city that had been our battlefield and our home. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for all of it, for firing you, for not trusting you with the truth, for thinking I had to protect you by pushing you away. I'm sorry, too, for not seeing how much pressure you were under, for not fighting harder to stay, for believing you when you said you didn't need me. I did need you. I just didn't know how to accept help without seeing it as weakness." "Your mother," I said, remembering James's story. "You learned early that needing people means losing them. That's not an excuse. No, but it's an explanation. And maybe, eventually, it can be a reason to try again." She looked at me. "Try what?" "Being people who trust each other, who tell the truth even when it's hard, who don't run from problems by pushing away the people who care about them. I don't know if I know how to do that. Neither do I. But we can learn." Visual. 2 hands, almost touching. Not quite. The space between them, charged with possibility. "Mr. Morrison," Riley's voice interrupted, "you should see this." I walked back to the table. She'd pulled up another email. This one sent from Marcus to Richard Voss just yesterday, after the meeting where we'd confronted him. From m.chen at strategic-dev.net to r.voss at vanguard-partners.com. Subject: Urgent Containment Protocol. Yesterday, 6:47 p.m. They know. Morrison accessed my server during the board meeting. They have everything: emails, recordings, financials. Victoria's going to flip. She's going to give you up to save herself. I'm following Protocol 7. Destroying local evidence. Liquidating accessible accounts. Will be offshore within 48 hours. Suggest you initiate your own containment procedures. They're going to the FBI, probably tomorrow. You have maybe 24 hours before federal agents start asking questions. Good luck. I'm out. MC. He's running, James said. I looked at the timestamp. Yesterday evening, after we'd escorted him from the building. Where is he now? I asked. Riley pulled up another screen. I've been monitoring his digital footprint. His phone last pinged near SFO San Francisco Airport around midnight. After that, nothing. He's gone. Not necessarily. I flagged his passport with a contact at TSA. If he tries to leave the country, they'll detain him for questioning. James pulled out his phone. I'm calling the FBI now. If Marcus is preparing to flee, they need to move faster. Victoria was reading the email again. Protocol 7. What's that? Riley searched through the files. Found a document. Opened it. Protocol 7 emergency extraction. To be initiated when asset recovery operation is compromised and criminal prosecution is imminent. Step 1. Destroy all local evidence. Hard drives, paper files, physical devices. Step 2. Liquidate accessible accounts and transfer to offshore holdings. Step 3. Cease all communication with Vanguard partners. Step 4. Exit jurisdiction using pre-established identity documents. Step 5. Relocate to designated safe country. No extradition treaty with U.S. They planned for this, I said. They knew eventually someone would figure it out. So, they built escape hatches. Which means Vanguard's executives are probably initiating their own protocols right now, Victoria said. Moving money, destroying evidence, preparing to disappear. James was on the phone, speaking rapidly to someone at the FBI. When he hung up, his face was grim. They're sending agents now to Marcus's apartment, to Vanguard's offices, to the airport. But we might be too late. I finished. We might be too late to catch Marcus, but we're not too late to expose what they did, to protect the other companies they're targeting, to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else. Visual. Dawn breaking over the city. The night of revelation ending. The day of reckoning beginning. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. David Morrison. Mr. Morrison, this is Special Agent Sarah Chen, no relation with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. I understand you have information about Vanguard Partners and a systematic fraud operation? I do. How quickly can you get to our field office? I looked at Victoria, at James, at Riley, surrounded by evidence that could save some people and destroy others. We'll be there in an hour. Bring everything you have. And Mr. Morrison, you might want to bring a lawyer. For yourself. This is going to get complicated. She hung up. The conference room was very quiet. This is it, Victoria said. Once we hand this over, there's no taking it back. The FBI will investigate everyone, including me. They'll build their case. And wherever the evidence leads, wherever it leads. I agreed, but at least it leads to the truth. James started gathering laptops. Riley was creating encrypted drives. Victoria was calling her own attorney. And I stood there, watching the sun rise over a city that was about to discover that 17 companies had been systematically destroyed by predators in suits, including, almost, the one I'd helped build. The FBI's San Francisco field office smelled like stale coffee and bureaucracy. We sat in a conference room on the 7th floor. Victoria, James, our attorneys, and me. Across the table were 3 federal agents, Special Agent Sarah Chen, who'd called me that morning, her partner, Agent Michael Rodriguez, and someone from the Department of Justice named Catherine Walsh, who looked like she'd been doing this for 30 years and had seen every variation of corporate fraud humans could devise. Riley had stayed behind to maintain the digital chain of custody. We brought physical copies of everything, printed emails, financial records, audio transcriptions. 5 boxes worth of evidence documenting 8 years of systematic corporate destruction. Agent Chen was reading through the timeline I'd prepared. Her face gave nothing away. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, she said finally. You're alleging that Vanguard Partners, a registered investment firm with $400 million in assets under management, has been running a coordinated fraud operation targeting struggling companies across multiple states. Yes, I said, and that they've done this 17 times over 8 years, generating approximately $800 million in fraudulent profits. $890 million, according to their own records. And your evidence for this is... She gestured at the boxes. Emails and recordings obtained from a computer server belonging to Marcus Chen, who was employed at Chen Dynamics as Vice President of Strategy. Correct. A server you accessed without a warrant, without permission, using credentials obtained through what amounts to social engineering. Visual. The attorney beside Victoria Margaret Cross, sharp-eyed and 60 leaning forward. My client was CEO of Chen Dynamics, Margaret said. She had authority over all company systems and employees. Marcus Chen's use of a private server for company business was a violation of corporate policy. Miss Chen had every right to investigate potential misconduct by her employees. And Mr. Morrison's access? Agent Chen looked at me. Mr. Morrison was serving as an independent consultant to Chen Dynamics at the time, Margaret continued, brought in specifically to assess operational and financial irregularities. His investigation was conducted under corporate authority and for legitimate business purposes. It was a good argument. Whether it would hold up in court was another question. Catherine Walsh from Justice leaned back in her chair. Let's set aside the admissibility issues for a moment. Walk me through how this operation supposedly works. Visual. Flashback montage, companies failing, money exchanging hands, executives being arrested, the pattern repeating. I stood up. Went to the whiteboard. Started drawing the cycle. Vanguard identifies a struggling company with valuable assets, I said, drawing a circle. Usually a firm with strong client relationships, intellectual property, or industry positioning, but weak cash flow or management problems. Like Chin Dynamics, Agent Rodriguez said. Like Chin Dynamics. They approached the CEO with an emergency loan, predatory terms, 15% interest, personal guarantees, acceleration clauses. But when you're desperate, when the alternative is bankruptcy, you take it. I drew an arrow to the next phase. For the first year, maybe two, everything seems fine. The company stabilizes. The CEO makes payments. Vanguard appears to be a legitimate investor. But then I drew another arrow. They plant someone inside, Marcus Chen in our case. These people present themselves as consultants, advisors, strategic hires, but they're actually asset recovery specialists. And their job is what? Walsh asked. Sabotage. They inflate expenses, create fake vendors, siphon money out of the company in ways that appear to be authorized by the CEO. They build a comprehensive paper trail showing embezzlement. Victoria was staring at her hands. This was her life I was describing. Her failure, weaponized. When the company inevitably starts missing loan payments, I continued, Vanguard doesn't negotiate. They accelerate. The full debt comes due immediately. The CEO can't pay. The company enters financial crisis. I drew the final phase. Then comes the extraction. The planted insider discovers the fraud. They cooperate with prosecutors, providing evidence that the CEO was embezzling. The CEO gets arrested. Vanguard files bankruptcy protection claims. They seize the company's assets, clients, IP contracts, and sell them to competitors at massive profit. The CEO goes to prison. Vanguard walks away clean, having made 3 to 4 times their initial investment. The room was silent. That's racketeering, Walsh said quietly. That's a RICO case, if you can prove it. We can prove it, I said. The emails document the entire protocol. We have Marcus's communications with Vanguard executives. We have their playbook for 16 other companies. We have financial records showing the pattern. We'll need to verify all of it, Agent Chen said. Interview the executives from those other companies. Trace the financial transactions. Build independent corroboration. How long will that take? James asked. Months, maybe a year. These cases are complex. Agent Chen looked at Victoria. Miss Chen, you understand that during this investigation, you're going to be under significant scrutiny. Your role in this. I signed documents I shouldn't have signed, Victoria said. Her voice was steady. I authorized expenses I should have questioned. I took a loan with predatory terms because I was desperate. I made mistakes. Mistakes that might constitute fraud. Or mistakes that might constitute being defrauded. Margaret interjected. Miss Chen was operating under false pretenses. Marcus Chen misrepresented his role, his intentions, and his authority. She was a victim of systematic manipulation. Visual. 2 narratives. 2 ways of seeing the same facts. The space between victim and perpetrator narrower than anyone wants to admit. That's for prosecutors to determine, Walsh said. But I'll be frank with you, Miss Chen. Your cooperation will be crucial to this case. If you're willing to testify against Vanguard, to provide insight into how they operated, to help us understand the manipulation tactics they used, that weighs in your favor. I'll testify, Victoria said immediately. I'll tell you everything. How they approached me, what they promised, how Marcus systematically isolated me and created the appearance of embezzlement, all of it. Even the parts that make you look culpable? Especially those parts, because that's how they work, isn't it? They blur the line between victim and perpetrator. They make you complicit just enough that you can't expose them without exposing yourself. That's the trap. Agent Chen was writing something.
We'll need to interview Mr. Chen, Marcus Chen. Do you know his current location?
We believe he fled, I said. His last known location was near SFO around midnight yesterday. He sent an email to Vanguard saying he was initiating Protocol 7, their emergency extraction procedure.
We flagged his passport, James added. Your people should have detained him if he tried to board an international flight.
Rodriguez was already on his phone, checking something. He looked up. No hits on the passport flag. Either he hasn't tried to leave, or he's using a different identity.
The protocol document mentioned pre-established identity documents, I said. Vanguard prepared for this scenario. They probably have multiple exit strategies.
Visual. Airport security footage. Crowds of people. Any one of them could be Marcus with a different name, a different face in the system. What about Vanguard's executives? Victoria asked.
Richard Voss, their CEO. The people who actually designed this system. Are you going to arrest them?
We need evidence first, Agent Chen said. We need to prove they knew about the fraud, that they directed it, that they profited from it. That takes time. While you're taking time, they're destroying evidence, I said. Moving money offshore, preparing their own extraction protocols. We're aware of that risk. We'll be moving as fast as we can. Search warrants for Vanguard's offices, freeze orders on their accounts, interviews with their executives and employees. But this is federal process. It doesn't move at the speed of panic.
James stood up. Agent Chen, my daughter is cooperating fully. She's providing evidence of a massive criminal enterprise. She's putting herself at legal risk to expose this fraud.
What assurances can you give her that she won't be prosecuted?
None, Walsh said bluntly. I can tell you that cooperation is a factor we consider. That a victim who was manipulated into participating in fraud is viewed differently than someone who initiated it. But I can't make promises about prosecution until we've completed the investigation. So Victoria confesses to everything, testifies against Vanguard, helps you build your case, and you might still charge her? That's the reality of federal prosecution. We follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Visual, Victoria's face, the understanding settling in, no guarantees, no safe harbor, only the truth and its consequences. Margaret leaned over, whispered something to Victoria. Victoria shook her head. I'm doing this anyway, Victoria said. With or without guarantees. These people destroyed 17 companies. They were going to destroy mine and frame me for it. Someone needs to stop them. Even if it costs you your freedom? Agent Chen asked. Even then. Visual. Late afternoon. Leaving the FBI building. Sunlight too bright after hours in windowless conference rooms. The world continuing while everything changes. The debriefing lasted 6 hours. They took our statements separately, then together. They asked the same questions 3 different ways, looking for inconsistencies. They made copies of our evidence, had a signed chain of custody documents, explained what would happen next. What would happen next was more waiting, more investigation, more uncertainty. We stood outside the federal building, all of us exhausted. Margaret was on her phone, already coordinating with other attorneys about Victoria's defense strategy. James was talking to someone from his company's board, managing the fallout from the revelations. Victoria and I stood slightly apart from them, watching the city move around us. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For coming back. For believing I was worth saving. For not letting me face this alone. I thought about all the times I'd imagined this moment. Victoria thanking me, admitting she needed me, acknowledging what I'd done for her. In my imagination, it had felt triumphant, vindicating. In reality, it just felt sad. You would have done it anyway, I said. You were already building evidence against Marcus. You would have fought them even if I hadn't come back. Maybe, but I wouldn't have known how. You're the one who figured out the trap. Who got Marcus to reveal his server? Who built the timeline that makes this prosecutable? She looked at me. You're the one who saw past the mistakes to the person underneath. Visual. Two people who've been everything to each other. Strangers, lovers, enemies, allies, trying to figure out what comes next. What happens now? I asked. To us? I don't know. The investigation will take months. I'll probably be suspended from Chen Dynamics while it's ongoing. My father will run things. If I'm not indicted, maybe I get to come back. Maybe the board fires me anyway. Maybe the company doesn't survive the scandal. And personally? She smiled. It was a tired smile. I think we need to figure out who we are separately before we try to figure out who we are together, if that's even possible. Is it? I want it to be. But I've spent the last 5 years lying to you and lying to myself. And I need to learn how to just be honest with everyone, starting with myself. Therapy? So much therapy. Probably medication. Definitely a complete restructuring of how I think about success and failure and self-worth. She laughed softly. I'm going to be a mess for a while. You're already a mess. Fair point. My phone buzzed. Email from Robert Sullivan's attorney again. Third notice of the lawsuit. This one included a court date preliminary hearing in 3 weeks. Victoria saw my face. Robert's not backing down. No. 3 million in damages. That's everything you have. Everything I had. I gave up equity at Titan when I quit. My savings won't cover 1/10 of this. I put the phone away. I'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. David. It's fine. Money isn't everything. I've learned that recently. I looked at her. From someone who had all the money in the world and was still drowning. That's not fair. No. But it's true. Visual. The city stretching out before them. 40 stories of steel and glass, built on foundations that look solid but sometimes crumble. James finished his phone call, walked over to us. Margaret wants to meet tomorrow to start preparing your testimony. The FBI is going to want detailed statements about every interaction with Marcus, every document you signed, every conversation you had with Vanguard representatives. I'll be there, Victoria said. And David, James turned to me. I owe you an apology. I manipulated you into coming back. I used your feelings for my daughter to try to solve a problem I should have prevented in the first place. You were trying to protect your family. I was trying to control a situation that was out of control, and I put you in an impossible position. Now you're facing bankruptcy because of my daughter's mistakes and my failure to stop them earlier. He pulled out an envelope. This won't fix it, but it's a start. I opened the envelope. It was a check from Chen Industries, James's company, made out to me for $3 million. I can't accept this, I said. It's not charity. It's payment for services rendered. You saved Chen Dynamics. You exposed a massive fraud operation. You prevented my daughter from going to prison. That's worth considerably more than $3 million. James's voice was firm. Take it. Pay off Robert's lawsuit. Start fresh, without that debt hanging over you. James, take it, David. Victoria's hand on my arm. Please, let us do this one thing right. Visual. A check. Small piece of paper. Representing freedom from one trap while others still close in. I looked at the check. Looked at James. Looked at Victoria. And I folded it, put it in my pocket. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me. Just don't give up on her. On us. On the idea that people can change when they finally understand what they've been doing wrong. James looked at his daughter. She's trying. For the first time in her life, she's actually trying to be better, instead of just trying to win.
Victoria's eyes were wet. Dad, I should have seen what was happening. Should have noticed you were drowning. I failed you when your mother died. I failed you again when you started Chen Dynamics. I'm not going to fail you this time. You didn't fail me. I failed myself. Then let's both do better going forward. Visual. A father and daughter. Years of distance. Trying to find their way back to each other. Margaret finished her call. Rejoined us. I've been thinking about the admissibility of the server evidence. We need to be prepared for Vanguard's attorneys to challenge how it was obtained. We followed corporate protocol, I said. You followed corporate protocol to access an employee's private server after suspending him. That's legally gray at best. We need to make sure everything else in our case is bulletproof. No more improvisation. No more clever traps. Everything by the book. Understood. Good. Because this case is going to be high profile. The press is going to love it. Predatory lenders, corporate fraud, a CEO fighting to clear her name. We need to control the narrative before it controls us. What does that mean? Victoria asked. It means we're going to tell your story. The whole story. Not the version where you're a victim with no agency. Not the version where you're a criminal mastermind. The complicated, messy, human version where you made mistakes and got exploited and are now trying to fix it. The truth. The truth. Margaret agreed. Which is always harder to sell than a simple narrative. But it's the only thing that actually holds up under scrutiny. Visual. Evening. The apartment Victoria and I used to share. Boxes still by the door from when she packed my things. Neither of us living here now, but both of us standing in it, like ghosts, visiting our former life. I'd agreed to help Victoria pack. She was moving out, giving up the lease, starting over in a smaller place, something she could actually afford while unemployed and under federal investigation. We moved through the rooms in silence, taking down pictures, wrapping dishes, dismantling the life we'd built together. Do you remember when we first moved in here? Victoria asked. She was holding a coffee mug. I'd bought her something silly with a quote about coffee being life's operating system. You said it was too big, that we didn't need this much space. But you wanted the extra bedroom for an office, for when we both brought work home. She smiled sadly. We spent so many nights in that office, working side by side. I don't think I appreciated that enough. I don't think either of us appreciated anything enough. We were too busy building the future to notice the present. Visual. Montage of memories. Younger versions of them laughing, working, being together. The ghosts of who they were. If we could go back, Victoria said, what would you change? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. I packed books into a box. I'd want us to communicate better, to trust each other more, to not let work consume everything. But if we'd been different people, would we have even ended up together? Maybe we were always headed here. Maybe this collapse was inevitable given who we were. Or maybe we just made a lot of small, bad choices that added up to one big disaster. Does it matter? Which it was? I think it matters for what comes next. If this was inevitable, then there's no point in trying again. But if it was just mistakes we can learn from, then maybe there's a chance. Victoria set down the mug, turned to face me. Do you want there to be a chance? She asked. Honestly, after everything I did, everything I put you through, do you actually want to try again? Visual, close-up, two faces, the question hanging between them, the honest answer required. I don't know, I said. Part of me does. The part that remembers who we were when we were good. The part that saw you making recordings and building evidence and trying to protect me even while you were drowning. That part wants to believe we could be those people again. And the other part? The other part is terrified, because loving you nearly destroyed me, and I don't know if I'm strong enough to risk that again. That's fair. Is it because you asked an honest question and I'm giving you an honest answer that might hurt? Honest answers are supposed to hurt sometimes. That's how you know they're real. Victoria moved closer. I'm terrified too. Of trying again and failing. Of hurting you again. Of discovering I'm incapable of being the person you deserve. Maybe the question isn't whether we try again. Maybe it's whether we can learn to be people who deserve each other. How do we do that? Therapy, time, space, to figure out who we are when we're not defined by success or failure or company titles. I took her hand. And honesty. Total, uncomfortable, terrifying honesty about what we want and what we're afraid of and what we need from each other. Starting now, Victoria took a breath. I'm afraid that I'm fundamentally broken. That when my mother died, something in me shattered, and I've just been pretending to be whole ever since. And I'm afraid that no amount of therapy or time or good intentions will fix that. I'm afraid that I lose myself in other people's dreams, that I don't know how to build something for myself instead of building it for someone else. And I'm afraid that even if we try again, I'll just disappear into your vision again, and we'll end up right back here. Visual. Two people holding hands. Honest. Vulnerable. Terrified. And trying anyway. Those are big fears, Victoria said. Yeah. What do we do about them? We face them. Together and separately. We get help. We do the work. And we accept that maybe it won't be enough. Maybe we're too damaged. Maybe love isn't enough to fix what's broken. But we try anyway. We try anyway. She kissed me then. Soft. Tentative. Like a question more than an answer. And I kissed her back. Not because I knew it would work. Not because I was certain about anything. But because some things are worth trying even when you know they might break your heart. The story broke 3 days after our FBI meeting. I found out the same way everyone else did, my phone exploding with news alerts at 6:47 a.m. I was in a hotel room downtown, the temporary space I'd been renting while Victoria and I figured out what trying actually meant in practice. Exclusive. FBI probes strategic consulting fraud scheme Wall Street Journal. Chen Dynamics CEO cooperates in massive Vanguard Partners investigation Bloomberg. Corporate loan sharks. How Vanguard Partners allegedly destroyed 17 companies. Business Insider. Someone had leaked, or the FBI had coordinated the announcements. Either way, the world now knew what we'd spent 3 days explaining in that conference room. My phone rang. Victoria, have you seen? I'm watching it now, I said. The hotel TV was on CNN. A financial reporter was breaking down the allegations, using graphics to show Vanguard's alleged pattern of predatory lending and asset stripping. They're saying I'm a victim and a perpetrator, Victoria said. Her voice was strained. That I knowingly signed fraudulent documents. That I was manipulated, but also complicit. That's what Margaret told them to say. The complicated truth. The truth is destroying my reputation. I watched the screen. They were showing old footage of Victoria at industry conferences. Confident. Commanding. The chyron beneath read, Chen from rising star to federal witness. Your reputation was already destroyed, I said gently. This is the rebuilding. It just looks worse before it looks better. Visual. Social media feeds scrolling. Twitter reactions. LinkedIn posts. The court of public opinion rendering verdicts in real time. The reactions were predictably split. Half the comments were sympathetic stories from other CEOs who'd faced predatory lenders, recognition of how manipulation worked, support for Victoria's cooperation with federal investigators. The other half were brutal. Calls for her to be arrested, accusations that she was playing victim to avoid consequences, speculation about her relationship with Marcus, about Chen Dynamics' other clients, about everything. My father wants me to give a statement, Victoria said. Margaret says I should stay silent until the investigation completes. What do you think?
I think you should tell Margaret about the death threats. Silence on the line. Victoria, tell me you've reported the death threats. They're just internet trolls. People hiding behind anonymous accounts saying horrible things. It doesn't mean. It means you need security. Now. I was already getting dressed. Where are you? At my father's house. He insisted I stay here while this plays out. Good. Stay there. Don't go anywhere alone. I'm serious. Visual. Close-up of threatening messages on a phone screen. Anonymous hatred made visible. Visual. Midday. FBI field office again. Agent Chen's expression, grave. The FBI had called an emergency meeting. Margaret and I arrived together. Victoria was staying at her father's estate with private security that James had hired. We have a development, Agent Chen said without preamble. Marcus Chen was apprehended this morning in Vancouver. Canadian authorities detained him at the border trying to enter from the U.S. He was in Canada this whole time? I asked. He flew to Seattle using his real passport, then drove north, used a different identity to try to cross into Canada, probably planning to continue on to a country without an extradition treaty. But the border agents flagged the false documents. Is he talking? Margaret asked. Not yet. He's requested an attorney and is fighting extradition, but we expect to have him back in U.S. custody within the week. Agent Chen pulled up something on her laptop, which brings us to the second development. Vanguard Partners filed for bankruptcy protection this morning. The room went very still. They're claiming insolvency, Agent Rodriguez added, says their assets have been frozen by federal investigation and they can't meet their obligations. It's a defensive move trying to shield their executives from civil liability. What about criminal liability? I asked. That's where it gets interesting. Catherine Walsh from Justice entered, looking like she hadn't slept. We executed search warrants on Vanguard's offices yesterday. Found extensive evidence of the fraud operation more than what you provided. Internal memos, financial projections, even performance reviews for their asset recovery specialists, rating them on how effectively they bankrupted target companies. Visual, boxes of evidence being wheeled out of offices, FBI raid footage, the machinery of justice grinding forward. But when we went to arrest Richard Voss and the other executives this morning, they were gone. Offices cleaned out, personal residences empty. We believe they initiated their own extraction protocol sometime in the last 48 hours. They ran, Margaret said. They ran. We've issued federal warrants, contacted Interpol, frozen what accounts we could find. But people with $800 million in offshore assets and years to plan their escape, they know how to disappear. I thought about Protocol 7, about how Vanguard had designed this entire operation with an escape hatch. They'd known eventually someone would expose them. They just wanted to profit as much as possible before it happened. What does this mean for the victims? I asked. The 17 companies Vanguard destroyed? It means recovery is going to be nearly impossible. Bankruptcy court will try to claw back what assets remain, but most of the money is gone. Offshore, untraceable. Walsh looked at Margaret. It also means Miss Chen's cooperation is more valuable than ever. Marcus Chen and his testimony might be our only path to proving the executive's direct involvement, which means Victoria remains a key witness, Margaret said. And a target, Agent Chen added. We've received credible threats against her. People connected to Vanguard's network who don't want her testifying. My blood went cold. What kind of threats? The kind we take seriously. We're arranging protective custody. Miss Chen will need to relocate to a secure facility until we can assess the threat level. For how long? However long the investigation takes. Months, possibly. Visual. A woman's face in a window. Freedom traded for safety. The cost of telling the truth. Visual. Evening. James Chen's estate. Armed security at the gates. A fortress built from necessity. I found Victoria in her father's study, staring at a blank legal pad. She looked up when I entered. They want to put me in witness protection, she said. I know. For months. Maybe longer. No contact with anyone except through FBI channels. No work, no company. Just waiting in some safe house while they build their case. It's to keep you alive. I know. She set down the pen. I'm going to lose Chen Dynamics. Even if I'm not indicted, even if I'm cleared of charges, the company can't survive this. Our clients are already leaving. The employees are panicking. My father's going to have to sell the assets just to cover the liabilities. I'm sorry. Don't be. I built it on a foundation of desperation and lies. This is what collapse looks like when you finally tell the truth. She looked at me. What about you? What happens to David Morrison after all this? I sat down across from her. I don't know. Robert's lawsuit is settled thanks to your father. But my reputation in the industry is complicated now. Some people see me as a whistleblower. Others see me as someone who betrayed his employer, broke his contract, chose personal loyalty over professional ethics. Are they wrong? No. I did all those things. I just think I did them for the right reasons. Visual, 2 people in a study lined with books about business and success, all those rules and frameworks, none of them prepared for this. I need to tell you something, Victoria said. Before I go into protection, before everything gets even more complicated. Okay, I love you. I've loved you since Austin, since that conference where you were smarter than your position and I was arrogant enough to think I could build something worthy of you. I loved you when we got married. I loved you when I fired you. I loved you even when I was destroying everything we built together. Her voice broke. She steadied it. And I need you to know that going into protection, spending months isolated, possibly losing everything I worked for, none of that scares me as much as the possibility that when this is over, when I'm finally free, you won't want to try anymore. I crossed the room, knelt in front of her chair, took her hands. I'm not going anywhere, I said. However long this takes, however complicated it gets, I'm here. You can't promise that. Yes, I can. Because I love you too. The real you. Not the CEO or the criminal or the victim. The woman who built something impossible, made terrible choices trying to save it, and is now brave enough to face the consequences. She pulled me close. We held each other in that study, surrounded by books about how to succeed, while everything we'd built turned to ash. But we were still here, still trying, still choosing each other, even when it cost everything. The federal trial lasted 8 weeks. Marcus Chen took a plea deal 15 years in exchange for testimony against Vanguard's executives. The FBI never found Richard Voss or the other partners. They disappeared into countries without extradition treaties, living on the hundreds of millions they'd stolen. But 17 companies got justice. The testimonies, the exposure, the promise that this particular predator couldn't hunt anymore. Victoria was never charged. The prosecutors agreed she'd been manipulated, coerced, victimized by a sophisticated fraud operation. Margaret's strategy worked. The complicated truth held up better than a simple lie would have. But Chen Dynamics didn't survive. The clients left. The employees found new positions. James Chen liquidated the assets and paid off the creditors. What remained he put into a fund for the 17 companies Vanguard had destroyed partial restitution, though nothing could restore what was lost. Visual, an empty office, desks cleared, dreams packed into boxes, an ending that feels like death and birth simultaneously. I stood on the courthouse steps, waiting. The verdict had been read an hour ago. Vanguard's remaining associates found guilty on all counts. It was over. The door opened. Victoria emerged, Margaret beside her. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Lighter somehow. Like she'd been carrying weight so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. She saw me, smiled. "It's done," she said when she reached me. "How do you feel?" free, terrified, unemployed. She laughed, ready to start over. We walked down the steps together. No cameras this time, the press had moved on to newer scandals. Just two people who'd survived a war and were trying to figure out what peace looked like. "I've been thinking," Victoria said, "about what comes next. And I want to teach business ethics of all things. Show students what happens when you build companies on desperation instead of integrity. Use what I learned the hard way to help others avoid the same mistakes." "That's perfect. What about you? Any consulting offers?" "A few. Small firms who appreciate operational expertise and don't care about drama." I took her hand. "But I'm thinking about teaching, too. Or maybe writing. Telling stories about how companies really work, not how business school says they should. Visual. A city spreading before them. Endless possibility. The future unwritten." "We could write it together," Victoria said. "The whole story. What happened. What we learned. How we survived. As long as we're honest. Especially when it hurts." We reached the bottom of the steps. The street opened before us. Cars and people, and the beautiful chaos of a world that had kept turning while ours fell apart. Victoria stopped, turned to face me. "I love you," she said, "and I want to try. Really try. To be people who deserve each other. To be people who deserve each other." "I love you too," I said, "and I'm ready." We kissed there on the courthouse steps. Not a Hollywood ending, just two broken people choosing to build something new from the pieces. Together. Finally honest. Finally free.